What's up, and welcome to a very special edition of Ware Gaming Weekly, because we have played The Last of Us Part II. My name is Nick, and across the world from me is Josh. Say hi, Josh.
Hi, Josh.
So, we've been gone for a while. The last time you saw us was on our Ware Gaming News episode where I was in Kentucky. That was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for watching it. But in the span of the last couple of weeks, we finally were able to desperately finish this game because it was getting rough.
Long anticipated. Worked on it for years. We've much teased.
Yeah, much
Follow up
teased.
to one of the greatest games ever made.
So let's preface. Let's say a few things before we even talk about our immediate thoughts. I don't know about for you, Josh, but I know for me personally, I miraculously was not spoiled, at least in plot point ways, anything about this game. There's some things that I thought were going to happen that didn't, and some that did. But in terms of like any big moments happening, I did not get spoiled for this game. Did you?
Yeah, nothing about this game was spoiled for me. I didn't see any leaks. As soon as I saw someone suggest muting those words, like Ellie and Joel on Twitter, I did. Because one, I'm not the avid Twitter user. I'm not going down the Reddit post. I'm not going down the YouTube comments. So it's easy for me to miss a lot of that. That's how I stay, pretty spoiler free of most things.
Right.
But this one was very close to it would have been so easy for someone in one of the Facebook groups or that we're in. In Colin's Patreon, someone posted spoilers twice. And
really?
he banned them, but like more than one person's posted the spoilers. And,
wow.
And it's just like
especially when you hear like when it becomes when it makes the rounds in the news cycle that The Last of Us has been leaked, then it's all of a sudden you're like doubling down on everything. And so I did the same thing. I muted all those words. I muted misspellings of those words. I muted TLOU, TLOU2, Joel and Ellie, Last of Us 2, Last of Us PT2. I just went down the whole thing, and I can tell it made a difference.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just did Joel and Ellie, Last of Us, and that was about it.
Well, eventually I had to add in other names as well. So let's also make this abundantly clear. From this point on,
this is a total, all-out, no holds barred spoiler fest for both Last of Us and Part 2.
Yes,
because we'll have to talk about one with the other. So we're going to talk about it from the get-go. So if you haven't played either of those games and you don't want to be spoiled, leave now.
Get out of here. I was going to say to you earlier when you asked me this morning, because at first I was like, maybe we shouldn't do a spoiler cast because we already don't have much viewers. Like, are people going to want to watch? And I'm like, I don't care because I just want to talk about it and I want to
talk about it.
Yeah. So, all right, Josh. 3 weeks ago, you finally were able to boot up the game.
Yeah.
And I just want you to tell me, we both beat it last night. I just want to tell you to tell me, what are your immediate thoughts and reactions to the game?
So, my immediate thoughts and reactions to the game. Well, my immediate thoughts and reactions to The Last of Us Part 2 being announced was I didn't want a sequel. And I will leave that statement there until we get done, and we'll conclude with how I feel about that. But this game, top to bottom, is one of the most beautiful games ever made. I think one of the most fully realized, even though it's not an open world, there wasn't like hundreds of people walking around like in Grand Theft Auto or anything like that. But like, especially in the first, in the opening chapters of this game, it showcased just how beautiful everything was going to be, how detailed. This is the glass shatter game simulator 2020 because you could break every glass in the game and it breaks different ways every time. So down to the details of that, the horses. When we talked about Red Dead Redemption 2, one of my biggest pet peeves about how beautiful this game was is you spend all your time watching Arthur Morgan ride his horse, and there's just so many glitches with the horse hair. It looks like a sail at some point. It just didn't feel so meticulously designed when they talk about how Rockstar was focusing on, well, in the winter time, the horse's balls shrink. Like, okay, but
Mhm.
why does the hair look like a mop? Like it just
Yeah.
there was just so many little details that like that was my biggest pet peeve about it. It was such a good game that they just missed some of the just finesse details of what would make that game shine. And
Yeah.
Red Dead Redemption 2, I think, was a great game.
Mhm.
But here, bringing that back to Last of Us, the horses were beautifully designed. The hair, each hair looked like it was like independent. It flowed as you were riding down. Ellie's backpack, the zippers bounced like
Mhm.
independently, and they would bounce more rigorously if you were running and jumping, and like the backpack physics and the cloth physics, and everything was just so well done. Um,
Mhm.
I'll let you talk because I have so much more to talk about it
No,
as far
no,
as
no.
that
I
goes.
mean, no, this is how it's gonna be. Um, so I had to write it down because sometimes I lose my train of thought. So I loved it. I like you said, top to bottom. I loved. Well, love is not a term. Like I don't always love what happened, but I loved how this game left. How I felt when I left the game. I remember as soon as I finished it last night, I just sat there for like 20 minutes and like I couldn't even read the credits. I was just like in my own head about everything. Masterwork and storytelling. This I can't say I felt this way. Like I can't say I felt the way this game has made me felt. Pretty much in any medium, I felt scared for characters in games. I felt emotional in games, but I've not felt. Uh, there's when we get there, I'll talk about it. But this like the duality of the things that you have to do because it's a game versus the things you want to do as a viewer, like
Right.
those that react like anyway. So I love the game. I think it is, like I said, masterwork and storytelling. Like you said, graphically one of the most beautiful games I've ever played. Like I kept thinking of Red Dead because I would say probably Red Dead is the closest looking game to this
Yeah.
in terms of all of it. And I would say, like, I mean, I don't want to just kind of like throw out random words, but I just mean like, yeah, I think these two games, but this game specifically has like uh inspired me in such a way. Like the first thing I did when I looked up is looked if Naughty Dog was hiring for writers or something like that. Because like
I
as
think
someone
they're
who
okay on riders.
yeah, I know, and that sucks. I just like it made me think about storytelling in a completely new way. It made me think about video games in a completely new way. We can keep going and on and on. But
Yeah.
yeah, I that's initial reactions.
Um, well, I
Yeah.
mean, I
Okay.
didn't give you really my. And I was talking about the world. If I'm going to give you my like to finish that quote of, I didn't want a sequel.
Mhm.
I stand by that uh, initial reaction. I didn't want this game. Um,
You didn't want this
I
game?
didn't want this game. When I was done with the game, I was like, I can't imagine trying to score this game because
Mhm.
my f- because it's not the story I wanted. But
Mm.
it's his story. It's Neil and Haley's story to tell. It's Naughty Dog's story to tell. So, I, how can that's probably the same. How do you critique something like this? Like I can go down like I was talking about the world, incredibly beautiful, the animations, but like, and I get that stories don't have to be good and don't have, and it's okay to have stories that you don't agree with, and this is
Mhm.
that story for me.
Mm.
Like 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 after this, like this game didn't exist for me because
Oh, really?
The Last of Us originally ended so perfectly for me. Uh, so let's start getting into it a little bit. And we
Okay.
talked the other night. probably my biggest pet peeve about this game is they solidified that at the end of Last of Us 2, or at the end of The Last of Us, they were going to create a cure. And Joel stopped that. And that made Joel the bad guy. And for me, when I beat The Last of Us, he lied to her. That was the part that I thought was more morally gray, was that he lied to her about what happened. It was never about the fact that he saved her and that he killed the doctors and he killed the Fireflies. Because to me, the Fireflies were not good people. They didn't give Ellie or Joel any kind of indication of what was going to happen. They didn't let her wake up from being unconscious when in the river before they were going to do what they were going to do. Marlene, her mother figure who was supposed to take care of her, didn't step in and say, hey, why don't we at least have a conversation? This world's been screwed for 25 years now. I think we can wait a couple days while we like sit down and have a conversation about this. And to me, they weren't sure that killing her would have created a vaccine, because that's not how vaccines work. You find something and you test it, and it may or may not work. And they've tried. We learned they tried like 12 times, and it didn't work. So to me, Joel was justified in stopping this because they didn't give Ellie the choice. Because he, at that point, was her guardian. He had to make that choice for her because she was unconscious, and they didn't give her the choice. Now, he took the choice away from her by killing everybody and getting her out of here. That was a selfish thing for Joel, but he had to make a choice. And to me, he was not the bad guy. And this game made him the bad guy.
I somewhat disagree. I feel like, well, in terms of, I do think that, I agree that they made him the bad guy, and but I don't think this game was really. I don't think this game was really about the decision he made. It wasn't about whether or not she would have been a cure. Like that's kind of a moot point. Like that doesn't matter anymore. So this game isn't about whether or not she could have saved humanity. And while the game may have said that, I mean, this game, that decision is what set in motion the events of this game. But once that decision was made, it doesn't matter. This is a story about two girls going like finding revenge for their lost father figure,
Right.
and having the same story arc. We're just watching them in different points.
Right.
So, but I get what you're saying. I definitely get what you're saying and get why you feel that way. You can keep going.
So I mean, it's really that, not just that, and the fact that not only did they make Joel the bad guy, they tried really hard in this game to make Ellie the bad guy here.
Oh no, they totally did. Yeah.
And
well, see again, I feel like
I don't want to get too detailed in it because we'll get to the big major story beats. But my overall view is like, I wanted the story that we saw in the flashbacks, and I wanted intense action, and like the gameplay is fantastic, going around and shooting, killing people, and like and the is there a generic name? Just the infected? Like I've never picked up on like
yeah
the infected, killing them. All that was cool, but I really wanted a good like bonding game, and that's not what Neil wanted to tell. And again, that's why I could not even fathom trying to score this game, because I couldn't give this game a 10, only because I didn't want this game, and I thought he was going to sell me on it, and it just cemented the fact that this was not the game I wanted.
Yeah. Well, before we keep going into the story and that parts of it, you started talking about gameplay, and I think that's something that we can talk about too right now. Is that I agree. I loved the feel of playing this game.
Hmm.
I love the physics in it. I loved, like, I could tell I was going to from the trailers when you saw one of the E3 moments when it's the most famous one where they start kissing and then it cuts to this whole thing and then it ends, and you're not a threat or whatever.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
when, like, she gets pushed up against a car and cuts through the small crevices in the bookshelves, like, um I thought the combat, just like the game, felt rough and grounded. And I said this to you early on, uh, that I feel like no matter how you played the game, as long as you were still alive by the end of an encounter, you did it right.
right,
Like, no matter how many bullets you wasted, no matter how many times you had to heal yourself or run away, like, as long as you made it through the encounter, you did it right. um and as like, or if you didn't get caught or whatever. And I thought that that was such a unique thing to feel, because I remember talking when we were playing Final Fantasy, right? I mean, it's completely different games, but in terms of how the gameplay made me feel, like, I remember saying that Final Fantasy made me feel like a bad gamer, because I just, there's some, like, you had to do things in such a way
hmm,
to make it really feel like you were Cloud and stuff. And eventually it clicked for me and I really enjoyed it. But this game, it wasn't like, it never made me feel bad for getting hurt. It never made me feel bad for, oh, why did I use my flamethrower instead of my whatever. I will say there were some times when, like, once I finished an encounter, that when I walked through to collect things, I realized the other stuff I could have done. Like,
right,
oh, I could have come around here and spooked them that way. But that's not how, either that's not how I wanted to play, or it's not how I felt like playing in that encounter.
right.
Um, and like, I was watching my roommate play, and he's constantly, like, restarting encounters because he did something stupid or wrong. There was never one time I did not. I mean, outside of dying, I never restarted an encounter because I didn't want to feel the need to, and I just felt like this was my version of the story. It's like, if I
Yeah,
was retelling you when I got into a fight down the corner, I'm like, well, I did what I could, and I lost my arm while doing it, but I took the, just, anyway. So I made
right.
my point. You can go.
Um, no, I echo that completely. Going through the encounters, and like there were a couple encounters where I was like, where I had it in mind exactly what I was going to do, and then it flubbed. There were a couple
Mhm.
times I did restart,
Sure. I
because
mean,
they
I'm
made
not
it
saying that there's anything wrong with restarting. I'm just saying,
they made it so easy. The saving, the restarting feature is so instantaneous. This is going to be, this is next gen. Like
yeah,
like I can't. I mean, much faster. It would be Super Meat Boy. Like it would, like right on
yeah,
there. But
or Celeste.
uh, but exactly where you would go through an encounter and you would accidentally use too many bullets, or use the wrong bullet, or accidentally, like, you were stuck with your silencer on when you grab somebody and someone else notices. Now you got to ruin your silencer because it's the only gun you can hold at the moment. So you
Yeah,
bust out your silencer, and then someone comes up behind you and smacks you, and then you just got to run away and dive in the grass and hope they don't find you, and then pop up at, like,
yeah.
all the encounters. Now, I did feel like a couple encounters was like there's probably one or two extra people that was a little too many people. But
Hmm.
other than
Oh no,
that,
I'll definitely get into points where I'm like, all right, this is overkill. But yeah,
right. Well, it gets back into the classic Naughty Dog, and not just Naughty Dog trope of just murdering hundreds and hundreds of people.
yeah,
And that it did fall into that trope, and it tried to give you some feelings towards it, but it never like bothered me
well,
to.
no, no, I don't mean, I'm not even talking about, like, empathy wise. I just mean, uh like, just as a game mechanic, like,
Right.
as, like, things to do in the game. There were some definitely times later on where I just felt like, I don't want to keep doing this. I'm tired of it, whatever.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that in a minute. But I also, um well, I was gonna say, like, most usually, just with any of the encounters, usually always start them off stealth wise, right? Like, so
Oh yeah.
that was always the goal. But it's always like, I knew every time I went into an encounter that it was not going to end quietly, or yeah, it wasn't going to end quietly.
Sure.
And so, I mean, I always tried to, And there probably was a handful that I managed without making a sound, but it just was. But then of course you see these gifs or these little videos on Twitter of like
If someone
Shinobi or whatever, and I'm
just
just like, I
like
hate
I
it.
don't
Like
even know
I
how
hate
you can
you.
do that. Now,
Yeah.
so before we go too much further, I did this game specifically is one of the most accessible games I've ever seen. As far
Yeah.
as the accessibility options, you can change almost everything about the game. Like, and so about I don't know 20% of the way through, I decided to make some changes because someone had mentioned that you could turn on a detective mode, and I was getting frustrated running around looking for items, and so I went through the detective mode a little bit and or through the accessibility options and turned on to scan so you could see if there were enemies or um, items around you. Um, and those worked great. You could actually extend the range of how close or how far you wanted the scan to go and how
Mhm.
long it would echo. So you would hear like you would hit it, and then you'd hear like like a radar ping, and then you would have to look around to see like a ring uh,
Mhm.
showing you where this item to be picked up was at, and it would only last a couple seconds. So you would have to hit it again if you were kind of like echolocating items.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could extend the duration of those. And then for enemies, it did okay. I didn't think it was very. It wasn't necessarily the most accurate. I didn't use it
Mhm.
a ton because I didn't want. I wasn't going to cheese it. I really was doing it for the items, so I didn't have to,
Yeah.
miss too many items. But I did do it a couple instances where I was walking through like a stalker encampment, and it actually did a good job of telling you like it would even tell you if there was a scripted
Oh,
like
really?
um I was walking through a place that it was like behind this door something's going to happen. It would ping like there was an enemy at the door, and you would open the door and it would trigger like a cutscene or something for you,
Oh, okay.
and you would uh eh, just like it does in the normal game. It kind of warned you that something was happening there,
Mhm.
that an enemy was behind there. And for the I also had this weird little the sound cue for stalkers was creepy. It was like, ugh. Um,
Mhm.
because like for normal people it would just ping, but for the stalkers or some things you didn't see, it was like blub, blub, like just little.
Oh, wow.
You're like,
See,
oh,
that's interesting just because I didn't turn any of those on, so I like, that's a completely different experience, and just in terms
also,
of navigating.
which after doing so, it didn't really do a whole lot of help. But I turned up partner assistance because I didn't feel like I was getting a whole lot of help, or didn't get as much help as I wanted. And then by the time I turned it on, there was not a whole lot of
Partners?
hints after that point.
Yeah.
So it was hard to see how well they were doing. Um, and then I made it a little bit easier because I'm older and I just wanted to play the game, and I get.
Yeah. Well,
But
no,
I did,
and I get there's no
but I
shame
did,
in doing that.
but I was noticing some of the encounters were a little frustrating because it was like, okay, like I was firing shots like in a parking garage and people weren't coming after me,
Oh,
and
really?
and I'd only gone down one notch, so they were like very passive. I was like,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
and if I had thought about it, thinking about it now, I probably should have turned that notch back up because like I could just blow people away and like
Mhm.
not have too many issues, um, except for the big fight. Like even the big fight, like I died
Mhm.
multiple times. Uh, one because it spawns you there and doesn't give you a second to figure out where you're at, and the dude just grabs you and snaps your neck a couple dozen
No.
times.
And what is it, in the fire?
uh,
Uh,
the the bloater monster.
oh, that guy. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He,
That one.
I was like, you got to give me at least like the room away. I'm like 2 feet in front of him. He takes 2 steps. He's already got me. I don't even know what's behind me. But anyway,
Yeah.
um,
Um, so that's gameplay, and then, I loved how the sound was in the game. I love how the sound was. I don't know.
a sound design.
the sound design was really good. Not just from the music and the world perspective, but also like when you're in encounters and the way it lets you know that they know you. Like just happens. So like I remember the first few times it happened, I didn't quite pair the sound to the action. I was just like, oh, it's getting more intense. And then I realized, oh, why it's getting more intense is because they saw me. So and so that reaction, I'm kind of like Pavlovian, getting reacting to that noise. I'm like, no. Like the louder it goes, the more I'm running and hiding again, being like, no.
Yeah. I mean, that's nothing. That's not a new mechanic though. Like,
Oh, I'm not trying to say it is. I'm just saying that
yeah. I
the way
mean,
it
I
was
think the sound
implemented.
design was great. Um, you know, hearing the snow crunch and all that was very well done. Glass shattering and throwing the bottles and explosions were all very
Mm-hmm.
well designed. Um, the gurgling and like
Of the
choking,
clickers.
and, well, of anything you kill, um,
Oh yeah,
like especially like if you like you just hear like them choking on their blood or
yeah. Oh, especially after you leave them, like the Vita girl, when you
oh
kill the
yeah.
Vita girl, and then you walk away and you can still hear her like squirming a little bit, and I'm like,
hmm
it's
Um,
rough.
now there I had a bit of duality with. I mean, they went very graphic with this game.
Mm-hmm.
You could blow people's limbs off. You could completely dismember. Uh, the stalkers. If you only like blew them half apart, they would crawl towards you.
Yeah, the
Like,
stalkers were the worst in terms of that. Like
uh,
I would face shamblers more than the stalkers, and the stalkers were easier to kill theoretically, but it was
yeah,
just
but they
like,
would come out of nowhere. They would come peel themselves off the wall. I was like, all right, come on. Yeah, now I got to walk around watching the walls because
yeah. Hopefully, I'm glad that didn't last very long. Like that was just for the like Resident Evil moment, as people like to say, and then it just
Mhm.
kind of fixed itself. But yeah,
uh,
um, how long did it take you to beat this game?
I clocked in about 36 hours.
Because I did about
Or
25, and that's what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, and that's just according to the in-game clock was 36 hours.
Yeah, mine said 25, and but I'll tell you though, this game, no matter what that says that I did, I feel like it took me years to beat, just because. I mean, after every high stress moment, I just quit for the night. Usually, I think my average session like length was probably anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, but those 2 to 4 hours felt like forever,
Mhm.
just because of the either the emotional weight behind what's going on or just the stress, and it also depended on who, like if you're by yourself or you're with another person, because then like even though you have another person, it's still only really you. Like just the having that extra voice is always
Yeah,
comforting, and when you're by yourself, it's just like, oh. Um,
yeah,
by the time I reached Seattle Day 3, the first time, I thought the game was almost done, and I was spent emotionally. I was like, I'm ready for this, and then the turn happens, and I was like, fuck this. I was honestly like, no. And apparently,
like
everyone was the same way. Like
yeah.
everyone was like, as soon as go ahead.
No, I was same boat. I was like, and I didn't even notice it at first when we did the first switch. Like I thought we'd switched a little bit because it was pouring down rain eh, on the day one after the switch, and you go back in and you break through the window or the skylight. I was like,
Hmm.
oh, that's why the skylight was broken when we came here the last time, and so I was like, oh, we're I thought we were almost immediately going to catch up to that point, and then I
Yeah,
realized like, oh no, this it said day one, like
yeah,
I thought this was her day one. This is no, this is like day one in general. They both
yeah.
have the same day one, and we had to go
It's
through.
Ellie's. It's Ellie's day one still, but it's what was happening on her. So again, spoilers.
Yeah,
Obviously, Abby becomes becomes your character you play as halfway through the game. This is one note I was going to say, and I'll probably disagree on this at some point. but I said still related to gameplay, but it goes into story as well. I said there were times where the gameplay elements felt long, like I was saying, like
Yeah.
where it just kept going, and as soon as you thought you had a break, there was just another wave, even though we just had a huge wave of enemies we were dealing with. And there was times where I definitely felt like I'm like, okay, we can move on from this. Like I get the point, and now we're there.
Yeah.
But overall, I thought, for the most part, and we'll get there, that the story, um, for the most part, didn't overstay its welcome. I thought
No.
by the time, well, by the time I thought the game was over, for real, not the halfway point where we switched to Abby, but when I thought the game was going to be over, I was like, okay, and then it wasn't, and then I was like, oh, okay. So anyway, and we can get to there, but let's talk about this. Well, you can respond to that, and then I want to talk about the second half of the game with Abby.
Yeah, I had the same reaction. I mean, I may not have. I didn't like this story because this isn't the story I wanted. That doesn't mean it was a bad story, and that doesn't mean I wasn't engaged the whole way through. Like
Okay,
I
gotcha.
wanted to see it through, and I thought about it all the time, but I dreaded every minute of this game. Like
Mhm.
I didn't want the next story beat because one, I mean, not being spoiled, but I was just waiting for a shoe to drop somewhere that
Yeah.
because I kept making up things in my head. So we never even did the first spoiler. So let's take it back.
Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry. We're just bulldozing. It's
Yeah,
almost like common knowledge now. That's like,
right.
yeah.
So
First moment. Go ahead.
so I originally, when they first announced this game, and along with many others, um, we either assumed or expected Joel to die, or that he was going to be dead at the beginning of the game, and it was going to be because they told us it was about revenge, and then so we're like, okay, so Joel dies or her girlfriend dies, and this is a revenge story, and then they showed us trailers with Joel, and he said, "You think I'm going to let you do this on your own?" And the first trailer with the song where she's singing, playing guitar, and she's like, "I'm going to kill them all," that kind of stuff. Um, and there was always the question of whether he was just a ghost or whatever, and she was like, but the trailers we saw leading up to it said he wasn't. So
Hmm.
we went into this. Okay, so clearly they killed the girlfriend, and like
Yeah, honestly,
this is gonna be revenge over the girlfriend.
when
And
I was dealing with avoiding those leaks. Every time I saw a picture of Dina or whatever, I was like, I can't read whatever this says, because I was just for
expecting
sure
her,
that that's what the revenge story was going to be.
yeah,
Especially coupled with that song trailer. Again, I know it was super early on, but the song trailer of her telling him he's going to kill them all. Like, oh, it's about the girlfriend because he's still there.
right.
So that's where I was.
And so and then the whole opening of this game was fantastic for me. Like
Yeah.
him talking to Tommy and telling him what happened, and Tommy being like, "Hey, I'll take this to the grave. Like, I've got your back, whatever." And you coming down off the mountain, you cross a stream with a horse, and the ice breaks, and you brush a tree, and the snow falls off the tree, like just so specific. And then you walk in and you sing the song. The future day is the song to Ellie, who's just living a normal life now, like in this Jackson, Wyoming. And then he sings a song, and you wake up 4 years later, and now you're going on patrol with Jesse and Dina, and something happened last night, and we don't know, but there was a big blow up, and you got mad at Joel. Blah blah blah. Right. And so we play through the first 2 hours, 2.5 hours of the game, and you're killing infected, and you're doing the thing, and you're really just having a conversation with Dina on the way
Mhm.
to the stash house, basically. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
where they had to do the creek run. They were checking out houses, getting supplies, and then you get to this place, and then you have a good time with your girlfriend, and then Joel and Tommy are missing, and it switched at some point to you playing as this character who we weren't sure of. It was some girl. They were in the snow lodge, heading towards Jackson for some unknown reason, and you played through, and then you ran into Joel and Tommy, and you're about to get overrun with infected, and then they find you and rescue you, and you get all the way through, and you go back to the lodge with Joel, Tommy, and this new character. I don't know when we learned her name, but her name is Abby.
Mhm.
Um, and you get to the moment where, well, they fight off all the infected that were outside the lodge. They go inside and they're like, "Hey, if you needed to stop in and get some supplies, you should come down to the city and rest up before you leave tomorrow." And they, Joel and Tommy gave them their names, and then the whole room just went silent. And Joel was like, "Well, it sounds like y'all heard of us." And Abby's like, "It's because we have," and then blows his leg off with a shotgun. And we're like, at that point, I was like,
Yeah.
and then
2 hours, 2 or 3 hours into the game, and it's already happening.
and you're like,
And then
no,
it switches you to Ellie. And I'm assuming you all already know this, but just to feel it with us, it was just like,
right.
as soon as it switched us back to Ellie, I'm like, we just gotta go. Like, I'm not looking around for anything. I'm not waiting for supplies. I'm just fucking booking it. And then you get to the lodge and you go down those stairs, and it's just like,
And it just
and
makes you
and
think
so
that you're going to
yeah.
save him. Like it gives you
Well,
that
and like I figured he had plot armor or something like that. I just assumed, like, I mean, I figured if he was
because
gonna die, it's gonna be near the end of the game.
right,
Like,
we already seen him in the trailer. I'm
yeah,
like, all right, we're gonna get to a point and we're gonna save him. Clearly, like I was a little worried, but like I was like, man, she just blew like she really got him in the leg.
yeah,
Like that leg does not look good anymore. And I was like, but we've seen him later, so he's clearly not dying here. As so you're as LA and you're like frantically getting to the lodge and like finally you hear him yelling down the hall or whatever, and then you open the door and you see him and you feel like you're about to save him, and then you're jumped by the rest of her crew,
yeah,
and then you watch him just get viciously murdered, like in the most brutal like death scene you can
yeah,
imagine, like golf club. It's awful, and then
yeah,
that's how the game starts.
yeah. Well, it's almost worse than the Sarah moment. Well, I don't know. It's different than the Sarah moment because the Sarah moment is at least like it's heartbreaking, because it's like this guy just lost his daughter, but this is angry. Like, this is like it's not heartbreaking. It's I mean, it is, but it just makes you mad, and it makes you
Infuriating,
furious.
and
And that
they treat him with such disrespect and just such
and,
disdain. Like, I mean, one to murder someone with a golf club in front of someone begging them to stop. Like,
yeah,
please don't do this. And to bash his head in with a golf club, and then have your buddy come up and spit on him after he's
I
dead.
said, yeah, I felt very little remorse for most of Ellie's action throughout the rest of the game. I was like, from that point on, I remember we talked about it the next day, and I was like, I I don't care anymore. Just go after it.
Burn the
I
world
don't care
down.
what she has to do.
I said, kill
Burn it.
them all. There's only one thing she did in this entire game, front to back, that I disagreed with.
I
We'll get
have 2 or 3 moments, but we'll get there.
well,
Um,
not disagreed with, but why would you do that? Like that's something that
oh, okay,
crossed one thing crossed the line for me.
gotcha.
There was times like okay, but there was one that was like, come on, Ellie,
Yeah.
and
Well,
we'll get to that.
so we have this moment where the first half of this game, you're chasing down this woman, you're chasing down this team of people, but you're chasing down Abby, and you're just like, she's gonna get it. And then we get to the moment in the theater, and it's such a good moment too, because it's another thing to make you think that the game's about to be over. It's like they're gonna cut their losses and go back because Tommy's not gonna survive. Dina's not gonna survive with her baby right now, and Like it's a really, I mean, it's this moment of of relief. And honestly, I don't know why I thought the game was going to be over soon. Like obviously, I knew there was going to be more, but like I was just like, maybe this is for the best. Maybe maybe we just need to cut our losses and go.
I
And
mean,
then
at that point we'd already killed everybody else,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So it's like they even had the whole conversation. Like, are you gonna? Even Tommy asks her, like, "You're gonna be okay just leaving her there?" And he's like, "We have to. Like, we gotta go."
I mean,
And so as soon as you open that door and Jesse's head gets blown off, I was just when you spend like Jesse's probably the character you spend the least time with in the
right.
game, and he was pretty impactful. Like it wasn't like I was shocked more by the suddenness of it rather than the. I wasn't necessarily sad that he was gone. I wasn't happy either. It's just like Jesse's death didn't mean much to me, but I was just shocked overall that it had happened, and he was starting to get kind of friendly. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then so you have Abby, and I don't think that Lev is there at the time. I think that the
No.
camera blocked Lev off. So it's just Abby, and I was like, and then it switches you to playing as her back to day one, and I just remember being like, I don't want to do whatever this is gonna be. And so for
Right.
me, taking over for a second, I was just for my overall impression, and then we can dig down into it, is playing as Abby is probably very similar to yours. I or everyone, as far as I know, I did not want to do it. Did not care to do it. I knew exactly what it was going to try to do, and I'm like, nope. This is like I don't care. I know there's two sides to every story. I don't care. And it wasn't until Abby met, and I know I'm skipping a lot of plot points.
Yeah.
But just in terms of my overall, like how I felt about the second act, I didn't like Abby at all. I didn't care to like Abby. I didn't care to get to know her at all until she went back and helped out Yara and Lev. And
Yeah.
then there was some moments there that I was like, oh, like, so for me, the moment that Abby takes it upon herself to take care of Yara and Lev is, in a weird way, a very similar moment when Joel decides he's going to take care of Ellie. And they're both terrible people at the beginning of this. And especially Joel. I just recently watched the scene where Tess dies in part 1. And he's like, I don't care what you want to do. We're not going all the way to Salt Lake City for this.
Yeah.
And then he ends up doing it. And different motivations, but similar actions of you have this person who you don't want to have to like at all. And then they get this companion that brings out their humanity. So anyway, so I enjoyed the game, the second half of this game more once Lev was involved. But up until that point, the game's trying to make you think about this team of the cast that you already know: Owen, Manny, Mel, and Abby, and whoever. Like they're just the good old boys, and I wasn't having it, except for Manny. And then I realized what Manny did, and I'm like, just come on, Manny. Like he's a guy you want to like. And then anyway, so tell me about your. You can either respond like that, or you can go into just day one.
So I mean, I the same reaction. I knew exactly what I expected to play as Abby from the get go because we played with her at the beginning. So I was like, clearly at some point we're gonna play as her again, and I started assuming like because there's so much hate for this game. There's so much just awful negativity for this game, whether it's about the fact that Ellie's a lesbian, or that
Joel died,
or that Joel died, or that Lev is trans, or whatever. But there's hang on, just
no, you're going to talk about what you thought was going to happen.
Oh,
to
so
kids,
so I started.
didn't make
So I started thinking, oh well, the only thing that could make people so angry is if they just kill Ellie.
Right.
And I just expected. I was like, we're going to get to this point. When it was at that point when we get to the theater and she kills Jesse, points the gun at you, and then it cuts to day one, Seattle day one. I was like, we're going to get to the end of this, and I'm going to have to kill Ellie.
So I remember, I don't want to interrupt your point, but I called you a couple days ago, and I don't remember, like, to be honest, like I'd kind of forgotten in a, like, it wasn't even in the back of my head that Ellie is still over here, because I had gotten into Abby's story so much. Like I was a part of that story so much that I was like, because whatever Abby was doing over these 3 days really didn't have anything to do with Ellie. So it like, so when we first switched over, I'm just waiting for this moment where Abby is like just gonna hunt down Ellie, similar how Ellie's hunting down Abby. But like that wasn't even on her radar until the end of her 3 days.
Right.
So I didn't even think about Ellie. I was thinking, well, when we're gonna play Ellie again. It didn't occur to me until I think it said Seattle Day 3 that I was like, oh wait, the day is the day. And then I remember thinking, are we gonna kill? It was the first time I ever thought about it. Like, are we gonna kill Ellie? And I remember talking to you about it, and I was like, I think they're going to have us kill Ellie. And I said, I don't want to do that. And I just said to you today, the part of the reason why I beat it last night was because I've had so much anxiety over a fucking video game, over like I was at work and I was telling my coworker. I mean, he doesn't know anything about the game, but I didn't tell him specifics. But I was just like, there's this moment coming up in this game, and like I've been thinking about it all day, and I really don't want it to happen. I really have to beat this game because I don't know what's gonna
Yeah.
happen. Anyway, I don't mean to take that away from you. I was just
Yeah.
like, I was
But
feeling so.
right. So, I before we got to that point in the theater, I was starting to suspect that Ellie was going to die. That we were going to. I thought Ellie was going to die, and we are going to have to play the rest of this game as the girl who not only killed Joel but killed Ellie. And I was like, I
Mhm.
am not about. I would probably have put the game down at that point. Honestly, like I don't want that. Again, I don't want the story. But when we switched, I was like, oh. So now I've got to play through these 3 days as this not likable, not relatable person who, okay, find out that her dad was the surgeon who was going to kill Ellie, and that's the one of the like that. That's who Joel killed, and so that's why that's why she killed Joel.
Mhm.
Okay, I mean, I get it. I can't expect her to be rational about someone who killed her dad, right?
Right.
But they both knew, her and her dad both knew that Ellie didn't know, and that
Yeah.
was okay with both of them, which for me is a non-starter. Like, okay, but you're the bad guy. The Fireflies are the bad guys. I don't care. And then they started. So it was that I expected them to try to get me to empathize with her. I appreciate that she was mad about her dad. I can empathize with that, but they were still the bad guys. Like, and you met her friends who are all terrible people. They weren't good people. Oh, except Owen, who was just nothing. Owen
Mhm.
had no personality. He was milk toast. He didn't. He was like, he didn't have conviction. He didn't have conviction about his girlfriend with the kid. Like, he kind of didn't really want Mel. He
Mhm.
wanted Abby, but Abby was too focused on want revenge and whatever they were doing. But she got her revenge, and it wasn't like it didn't satisfy her. Like,
Right.
but I don't know. It was a band of people that weren't good people, and I didn't like any of them
Mhm.
except the people she met. Yara and Lev were
Mhm.
the only redeemable people in this game were
Yeah.
Yara and Lev.
I will say, I for a moment there, I thought I liked Mel, uh, but and just because it's like she was one of the only ones who didn't, she didn't want to go to Jackson, she didn't want to do any of it, and she hated Abby. But the reasonings behind it all, similarly to what you said about Owen, I was just like, but she's just not interesting enough as a character overall to make
No.
me be like, yeah, Mel, go. And then, I mean, I thought Owen was, I liked Owen, but I agree that he was like his lack of conviction, like he just wanted to do his own thing. He didn't care about being with the wolves. He didn't care about a lot of it. He just wanted to, you know, he just wanted to enjoy the rest of his life. But he was very like unconvicted about it.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I thought that was weird.
They were all backstabby. Like
Yeah,
even when Ellie was like, "I want to know what happened," and like from the get go, Ellie and Dina were like, "These people are crazy. They shoot at you on sight. Like, what if we had kids? What if we had like these wolves are not good people?"
yeah.
And um, for me, they never reconciled that, except
Well,
with the Yara and Lev thing. But that didn't reconcile it. That was Abby's like turn, and to see her actually turn, like when she first killed a wolf, and she was like, "Oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck," like that was the one I was like, okay,
yeah, yeah,
I could see her arc, and the big quote when she turned when Yara was killed,
yeah,
and Lev was like, "That was your people," and when Abby was like, "No, you're my people,"
yeah.
like
That was,
that was a big line that definitely pushed me onto like, okay, I can see what you're doing here. Um,
yeah,
but as far, I mean, I wrote down the names. Manny, I was with you. Like, I thought as a character, as a comic relief almost. Like he was funny, he was witty. But then we go back to remembering that he was the one that spit on Joel, and he was the one I hated almost as much as Abby, just because they were just
mhm,
so nasty about it. Then you have Nora, who like she was like, "Yeah, that bitch got what he deserved." Like, of course I'm gonna stab you in the neck, like, or
yeah,
smash your head in so I can find Abby because y'all are all awful people.
yeah. That's the one thing. It's like, I've been thinking about how all of those members have reacted because I've said to you, like, no matter like who Ellie ends up like cornering, they're like, yeah, yeah, no, 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 I get it, I get it, and then they just try to stab her back anyway. And like, I get they're also in a position where they're about to die, so they're gonna do whatever to live. But like, no one tries to tell them like, oh, your dad killed her dad, and that's why. Like, I don't think Ellie knows by the end of the game that that's
Yeah,
why.
that's
Like,
why
she knows effectively
to
why,
to
but not
me,
because that's her dad.
yeah, to me it was she was very clear. Like I'm the one you want when at the theater because there's no cure because of me. She thinks that Abby's about all this because there's no cure.
Yeah,
I don't think Ellie realizes that that was her dad was the surgeon. I
yeah,
don't think that was ever revealed to Ellie, which may have changed things for Ellie, may not have. Who knows?
right.
Um,
Uh, Continue.
also, I thought Owen looked like her dad, Abby's dad. I wanted to point that out. I
Oh,
thought
I don't remember
multiple I thought multiple times that he was strikingly similar to her dad, and I thought that was weird. Um,
it. Yeah.
let's see. Um, I thought Abby, like I mentioned it to you, I thought she was a bully. She wasn't nice to her friends. She wasn't. She didn't care about Mel. She wasn't interested in Owen because she wanted this revenge. Manny, she was. I mean, Manny, they were like frenemies almost. Like they were just not really
Mhm.
frenemies, but I just never thought that she. I never felt any kind of like she had any friends. And
Yeah.
then the Yar
Well,
and
see,
Lev thing. My biggest thing with the Yar and Lev thing is the whole time she kept saying, "Well, she was doing it for her." It was
mhm.
I d when Yara and Lev both asked, she's like, "I'm doing this for me." And it was a selfish thing that she was why she was helping them. Which with Lev, it turned into more than like selfishness. It was about
Yeah,
friendship. But at the beginning, it was all about selfishness. It was all about her, which is why
yeah,
I never bought into her being the good guy.
Yeah.
At no point was she the good guy. And maybe that's the point. There are no good guys in this story.
And there are also no bad guys in the story.
They're all bad
Well,
guys, and
yeah.
which leads me back to I'm glad Ellie didn't die because humanity is not worth saving.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly. Yeah, I thought that see, what did I write here? No, I never really thought that she was a bully. I never got that sense. I thought that she I mean, I felt like she was just processing what it was like now that she's captured she's achieved her goal, and it doesn't matter. Like whatever she did just doesn't matter anymore. Like her entire life for the last 4 years is to get to the point where she can get her revenge, and then she got it, and what now? And then she just goes back to work and does her patrols, and that when she notices, and then that's when she's able to focus on Owen and Mel are in this relationship, but like whatever happened to our relationship. And then that's why she storms off to go to the aquarium, because it's like because now she's trying to caught up on all this. I looked at it as kind of caught up on all this time that she spent doing that. I don't know if that was the thing that I wasn't always on the forefront of the conversation pieces or whatever. It was just like day in the life of Abby, just being mean to her friends. And
Yeah. But on the other hand, not to hijack, I had a comment about they weren't originally wolves; they were fireflies that got pulled into that got recruited by the wolves and became
right.
higher ups. And then the turn for me, where she turned against the wolves, I thought was big, but it wasn't the biggest surprise after the lack of loyalty that Isaac showed. Like
Yeah. Well, like
that her friends were expendable. That even
yeah.
if she wasn't nice to her friends, like the fact that he didn't send a search party forbid her to go on it finding Owen. Like, dude, I came here with Owen. He's my best
Yeah.
friend or whatever. I'm gonna go find him because I know where he's at. Like,
Yeah.
and we'll figure out what happened with this other dude. And
Which I don't know
like,
if did we ever really figure out what happened? Oh, he
yeah,
was protecting a scar kid.
well, it wasn't a kid; it was an old man.
Oh,
It was an old Seraphite, and uh, he didn't want to kill him because he was just an old guy. He was just tired and he'd given up. He wasn't about the
that's
fight,
right.
and which is a parallel back with the end of the game, but we haven't really talked about. Your PlayStation's
Yeah.
going to sleep.
Yeah, it's okay.
Uh,
It's
but
had a hard couple days.
so when she turned against Isaac, it was like, okay, I mean, she saw he was a piece of shit, but so was she. But because
Mhm.
she turned when he wouldn't let her go find Owen. She's like,
Yeah.
well, I'm gonna go find him anyway, and that's when she stopped being a wolf.
Yeah.
Um,
And then all the moments where, she went into a wolf encampment after that, and then the message gets out that she's gone AWOL and everyone treats her like crap again. It's like
yeah,
there's no honor here. There's no moment of reflection, especially when it's Abby who's pretty much the like chief in command.
right,
And yeah,
yeah. So for me, it was really hard to empathize with Abby, or try to get on her side, uh, because I just never saw a redeeming character in her. Um, and I only supported Yara and Lev. And that
hmm,
was the only reason I had any kind of respect for Abby is because she turned around and protected them as best she could.
right.
But she did it for herself, so I lost. So I just didn't feel like she fully gave up until the end, and then we
Well,
get there.
so thinking about doing this for me, I mean, I guess yeah, I mean, I'm saving you because it makes me feel better. I mean, I don't know what else she would have said. I guess it would be like because you were in hurt and and um I didn't want you to die or whatever. Um I don't know. I mean, I don't know what a better way for that to have been. Um, but yeah, I think I've heard some people say that they were like all on like Team Abby by the time the um, the game was over, or at least that part of the game was over. And I'll say this: I don't think I started, like you said, to respect her, and I'll even go as far as that I did like her. Um, but when it came to the moment where you're going back to the theater, the coming back to where I was saying at the beginning, that was when that juxtaposition in my body that was really happening. Because like, sure, I'm friends, I'm acquaintances with Abby now. Like we're cool.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna try to be nasty to her anymore because I get what she's been going through. But that doesn't mean I want to go and fucking kill Ellie. And then she sees that Owen and Mel are dead. And honestly, even like when
So yeah, step it back
so
to when
when she goes to
when
the
they finally get off the island with Lev after Yara dies, and have the whole moment where she turns on the wolves, and the big escape from there, and then she gets to. At that point, I'm like, all right, she's had a hell of a day. Like,
that's exactly what I'm saying. I
even
like
though I don't like this person, like she's had a hell of a day, and she's about to walk into this.
yeah.
Like,
I,
the fact that Ellie survived that night is shocking to me. She should
yeah.
not have let Ellie live.
Yeah. Well,
But
so when she gets into the aquarium, I kind of I say I pretend to forget that what I know is happening. Like I force myself to be like, "Oh, I'm going to go talk to the two of them." And then you jump down and you see the dog. And then like I know what happened, but because she's realizing it for the first time, I'm feeling her feelings a little bit. So I'm like my mouth is open, being like, and then
when
you
she
walk
stepped off the
down,
boat, I was like, oh, I just
and then yeah,
felt like she said the dog, and then Mel, who she hated, she was like, okay, and then Owen was the one I was more worried about, not
oh yeah,
Mel.
yeah,
Mel, she'd be like, all
and
right,
then
but
yeah.
Owen,
So that whole sequence, I just felt so bad for her, especially again knowing the hell you just came from was like when you think it's about to be over and you saved Lev and you're
and then you pick up the map and you see Nora and Jordan
Leia
and
and Jordan,
Leia, all of them, and you're like, they're all dead. They're all dead.
and
Like,
she's the one who did it.
and she's the one who did it. You watch Manny's head get blown off.
And you
Like,
realize, also, I didn't realize up until the end that that was Tommy.
yeah,
Uh,
well, that was a point. It was that one. It was a cool fight, but uh, which shouldn't have happened because I would have blown his head off.
yeah.
I but no, because I saw him. Like I flanked him,
I mean, you
and
got close to him. Oh,
I had no, I shot his head. But while me and Manny were running up, he was like, flank him, and I did, and he popped out, and I shot him, and I didn't realize who it was
oh,
because I was still expecting it to be a Scar, and I
yeah.
totally shot him in the head. I'm like, hello, I just shot him, and then he kills Manny. I'm like, that shouldn't have happened because I already killed this dude, and then it's Tommy. I'm like, oh well, fuck Manny.
Yeah. I mean, when Manny died, it shook me a little. I mean, it shocked me in the same way that Jesse dying. It was
See,
like, oh,
so that starts to become my problem with this game is they use that too much.
yeah,
They use the jump too much. They use it multiple times with the infected, multiple times with uh scars and wolves, and oh, here she is, like as soon as you come out of a crevice, as soon as you come open the door, as soon as they did that so many times that for me it was numb. I was like, okay,
mhm,
oh, Manny died. Like it's got to happen as soon as I open the door, Like to me, that
Yeah.
got very tropey in that game.
Well, yeah, but for me, like, I mean, it still hit me differently than like, you crawling through and then you hear that there's a team of people on the
Yeah.
other side.
I mean, I was
Uh,
shocked when he died because I wasn't expecting Manny to die, and I would have rather been the one to kill him. But um, it just reminded me like, man, they've used this a ton.
mhm, yeah,
Um, so going back to you find out they all die, you get back to the thing, and then you have the fight.
and then
When
honestly, I did
you
not
have
want to do this fight.
the first fight
I
with where you're Abby and you got to fight Ellie. I was like, I'm not fighting Ellie. I was like, I want to kill Abby. So I
Yeah.
stopped. I let Ellie kill me dozens of times.
Oh
I was
no,
like, I, like the first time I just let her kill me, and then I fought a little bit and let her kill me. I'm like, at some point, like, can I just let it happen? No, you gotta do this whole fight, which was a cool fight, by the way,
mhm,
because you're going around and you have to do different things. You can watch Ellie dig into her bag and craft items.
yeah, yeah. It was
I was
so
like,
cool.
I saw her duck down and her hand was in the bag. I was like, and she pulls out something else, and I'm like, oh, that was awesome, just to actually see that from this
Yeah,
perspective. I thought that was really well done. It was
I
much better than like the David fight, which was so annoying in
mhm,
the first game.
yeah,
Uh, where this was like, oh, you're the same person, just doing it like it's you're battling yourself. It's the Neo fight, like it's your polar
yeah.
opposite. Uh,
Well, I mean, that's
but
kind of what this whole thing has been. It's like you guys. I mean, you're on different spectrums of the same path, and so to fight each other is really interesting. But I'm right there. Like as soon, and the fact I was really hoping it would like in the middle of a interactive button, it was going to switch over, and then you would be Ellie and fight, and then that never happened. And I'm like,
yeah,
and I'm just like, I don't want to do
and at
this.
some
I mean,
point, I wanted
I didn't let her kill me. I did. I let the game do what it wanted to do, but I was like not looking while I was doing it. It was
because honestly, I wanted at some point to be like, look, what is going on? Get, like neither of them were. Again, this weird my thing about having the conversation. Like at some point, like she just killed all your friends because, and she warned you she was going to do that. She said
mhm.
from the get go, I'm going to fucking kill all of you after you because
Yeah,
I begged you to stop. And like it, so that I mean, and it's a little silly to expect that to happen, but
right.
in the fight, like, why did you kill Joel? Like what? Because he killed my dad.
Mhm.
Martha, like have that moment, like have
Yeah,
the like stop moment, like hang on, let's get a bearing here. And so okay, so we get to the point you kick the ever living Ellie, like
when she broke her arm, I was like, "This is it. It's about to happen," and I'm just
yeah,
like, "Oh my gosh!"
and then
I
she goes
was,
after, and then she goes for Dina, who comes out of nowhere and totally
which I
ruins it.
completely forgot about.
I was like, "Where's Dina at?" And I was like, "She's gonna come in." And Lev is just there. I have nothing against Lev at all. He's there because Abby's there, and Abby's friends died after his sister died, and they helped save his sister, so he's on their side.
Yeah,
It's nothing against him, so you know he's
he's fine.
basically an innocent bystander, no matter what he does. Um, and uh, which, by the way, having Lev there made that scene make a little bit more sense as far as why didn't Tommy do something like when she
Yeah,
pointed the gun at Abby or at Ellie, like he had plenty of time to do something, and he ended up doing something, but he ended up getting shot. Tommy is the one with plot armor,
yeah. Oh, talk about yeah.
and it's all his fault.
Honestly, all of it's his
The
fault.
whole game is his fault from the front. Anyway, except for Joel dying, that wasn't his fault. But um, anyway,
I mean,
so you beat the shit out of Ellie, like beat her to death. Like she should not have survived that night because, and if it were Ellie, she wouldn't have. I mean, if it
yeah,
was Abby on the ground, because You killed my friends.
Yeah.
Like everybody. You're nothing would have stopped her. But Lev stopped it.
Yeah.
And how he stopped Abby from doing that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because Ellie should
Well,
not have survived that night.
yeah. Well, and that spectrum of me feeling positive towards, Abby, like, while I didn't want this fight to happen at all, not only because I didn't want to kill Ellie, but because like I get it now. We're good. Like we can clean slate it. And then she's about to try to kill Dina, and she's like, good. That she's pregnant, which I mean, she just killed Mel, so even, right? And then that moment of like I was like, no, just I don't like her again. And then
Yeah.
and then Lev coming in and being the one to save the day.
Right.
I'm like, and then I like that was a really good moment for the game to end, because I was like, or to get to the wrap up, because it was like I'll never come in this town again, or don't ever let me see you again. And yeah,
And then it
I was
cuts.
just like,
and then it's like a year and a half later.
I thought Ellie looked completely different.
I thought it looked like Ellie had slimmed down, like she'd lost all her like I'm gonna get all her pissed off weight, like she de-bulked, like, and she wasn't a bulky, she wasn't
No.
Abby at all, but she was.
I think maybe she got taller.
She was already.
I think maybe she got.
She was already 18.
She looked lankier though.
I thought she just looked skinnier.
That's
like
true.
She looked skinnier. She wasn't.
Her hair was short.
She cut her hair, and they're living on a farm. And I was like, they're really doing this. And I was like, at least Dina's got to be alive. And before I even went downstairs, I went to the other side of the bed and saw there was a cup on the nightstand on the other side. I was like, okay, good, Dina's alive. So we go through, and I walk through the house with baby JJ, who I saw somewhere that it's not Jesse Jr.
That it's Jesse Jr.
That it's not Jesse Jr.
Oh, I never heard.
I think I saw somewhere the second J is not Junior. I think I saw Neil say. So I assume it's Jesse Joel or something, or
yeah.
But anyway, so you have this nice like farmhouse. You have the farmhouse that Dina wanted.
Yeah.
That.
Did you during the sequence, like the 30 minutes that the sequence took, like were you just waiting for something? Were you just waiting for someone to shoot somebody, or
yeah?
Well, I was kind of waiting for that Avengers moment, in Avengers Endgame, when Hawkeye is like out on the farm and then he turns around and everyone's gone. I had just assumed Abby was going to be there, or somebody was going to be there and fucking killed Dina. I was just ready for it.
Right. And then, of course, also at this point, I mean, we saw Tommy get killed again, and for the third time in the game. And so we're like, okay, well, Tommy died, but Dina survived, and now we're living in the farmhouse. Beautiful, just landscape, just gorgeous. You got the wheat blowing, the wheat grass. I mean, the art room, and I was like, this is it. This is the perfect ending.
Yeah.
And then you go outside, you herd the sheep in. This was a Red Dead Redemption 2, a Red Dead Redemption moment.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're going to have a mundane farm life. Cool. Walk around with JJ, finding silly elephants on the tractor or whatever. And then you go hunting. And then Tommy hobbles back in.
Yeah.
Someone found her right here, Santa Barbara.
And the thing is, he was talking her down from going the first time. They had the exact same conversation, just opposite. And then he's got to come in and be like drunk and belligerent or whatever he was, and just be like, "You promised me," and all this stuff. And I'm just like,
why? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this to her? She's living a life. Like, this is
Yeah.
what Joel wanted. This is what
Yeah.
Joel wanted. And you're going to come in here after trying to talk her out from going in the first place and then going without her. So she's got to come after you and try to
Yeah.
catch. The whole game was about trying to catch up to Tommy so you could do this together. And because you never
Hmm.
caught up to Tommy until after everything went to hell, that
Yeah.
like this whole game is about Tommy and his fuck ups.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like if he had been like, you know what, we're gonna go together, we're gonna get this girl, and because there was no stopping Ellie, but at
Yeah.
least we could go together. Because like if I go, then she's gonna go, so we could just go together because that makes sense.
Yeah.
But Tommy's an idiot,
Yeah.
and then
Instead, she's got to bring her pregnant girlfriend up there. Of course, she doesn't know at the time, but like,
right, like Tommy should have died the first time when Joel died and didn't.
yeah,
The second time when he was shot in the head, or no, when he was pushed off the boat or whatever and landed in the water. Uh,
oh yeah,
like he fell like 40 stories into the water or whatever. He should have died there, and then should have died when he got shot in the head.
yeah,
And
but
so he goes
somehow,
back and he guilts Ellie into going when knowing she's got to go by herself.
yeah,
And the last time this happened, it didn't end well for her or Dina or him
yeah,
or Jesse. Like, and they were over it. I mean, they weren't. I mean,
yeah.
she
I
wasn't,
mean, but like, yeah.
but
If
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 Tommy
he had
didn't have that,
exactly, if he had never
yeah,
said anything about it, like, you know what, they're having a life. This is okay.
mhm. Yeah, and it's just that whole lot, like, and then when she finally decides to go, and the whole time you're like, no, don't go, like, don't be that person, like,
Yeah,
you both were given second chances,
right.
and you just both accept it and move, and then yeah,
And she goes
so
to Santa
the whole
Barbara.
the whole going to Santa Barbara thing, I wrote in my notes there was a lot of eye roll, not plot, well, not necessarily by the plot, but just the fact that you like I didn't mind like going to the house as Abby and looking through that stuff, but as soon as I saw that there was more stuff to collect and another workbench to go through, I'm like, no, we're done with that. So I'll say, like, I was getting a little irritated at this point. I didn't mind the plot point of going to Santa Barbara, but having to do all this stuff, like, I was just like,
Yeah,
I don't want to fight more clickers, and then you had to fight another set of um, scramblers and all this stuff, and then there's a whole nother team and a whole new
awful
faction
people.
you have to, and it's just like, just because I was just so spent, I was like, I don't mind chasing after Abby one more. Well, I mean, I did personally, like, ethically speaking, but just like, I don't mind watching this stuff happen. I just didn't want to do it anymore because I was tired of doing stuff.
Right.
um,
I mean, I
what
didn't
I
mind
say,
taking down the new faction, the Rattlers, because everybody's got to have a stupid name, which
yeah,
is further proof that humanity was not worth saving.
yeah.
That
You
it
said
didn't
you didn't
matter
mind
where
doing it?
well, what I kind of liked about it was when you got a new weapon, you got the silenced machine gun. I
Yeah,
thought
that
that
was
was
super
kind
cool.
of I thought that was cool. And then uh, they were stupid enough to keep infected in the base, so I
Yeah, that,
crawled I crawled up and let them loose, and that was fun.
yeah,
And hearing them
yeah.
run around and
Well,
screaming, and that was awesome. Do you get the two
yeah.
clickers too?
Yeah, yeah. I was afraid to do that one because I'm like, are they going to turn around? And then, so what I did is I threw a glass bottle first and then opened up so they would go after the noise and not me behind them.
Yeah,
Even though I was crouched and stuff, I was still. But so like going back to like the start of this when you're Abby and um, Lev, like this moment, I was like, since like the stakes have been stopped, like there's no more stakes in this. I mean, there are there's still the world, but I'm like, oh, like this is them both with the weight of the world off their shoulders now.
right.
And so to see them react, I was like, oh, this is nice, like getting to see this. But Ellie's coming and this about to screw it all up again. and
Right. You
and then
see
when
her
it's
finally make contact with the Fireflies,
yeah,
and like see how happy she got. Like I thought that was like a genuine moment. Like this ending for her was really good, actually. Well, it
yeah,
wasn't, but it was.
yeah. Uh,
um, good.
well, and then chasing her as Ellie, and so the whole fort infiltrating business, I was like, I like in terms of like, I thought it was cool doing the clicker stuff. I just wish all that was earlier in the game because they talked about during promotional stuff about how you can use clickers against real people, and there was a few moments where that happened, but
Yeah,
not it wasn't a gameplay element. And I'm like, it was just like I was done. Like this is the epilogue for me. In my
right.
mind, this is the epilogue. I don't want to deal with all of this again. So having to do it, I was a little eye roll. And then like there's the section where you release the 2 clickers, and then when you go through the house and there's like 5 people in the house, and then there's 5 people in the on the balcony after the house. That's that I was done. I was like, I died a couple times, and I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Um,
I agree. I mean, I didn't die, but I was I was done at that point. As far as the
yeah.
gameplay, like the play mechanics, I didn't mind, but I would have preferred to see that earlier in the game. So
Well,
that's
yeah.
why I
No, I
didn't.
just mean like
That's
having
yeah,
to do it again was
right. And so yeah, I agree. I was like, all right, let's let's finally get to at the end of this game and find out what's going on. And then you find out that Abby's down at the pillars, and you're like, "What's the pillars?" They're like, "Just go down to the
and
beach." And you're like,
see, I
"Okay,
assumed it would be like these built like I knew they were going to be cells or something like that. I thought they were going to be like the solitary. I did not think they were going to be crucifixes. Like
right,
that was not what I was expecting.
yeah." And then you walk out there, and you're like, "Okay, I'm looking for the most built person, like
And then
hanging
you
up
see
on
the
this."
one with the ponytail. Did you see the one with the braid?
Yeah,
And you're just standing there like, why can't I interact with you? And then you realize it's her right there.
and
And
you
I was
look
just like,
at her, and you're like, "Oh fuck!" And even
yeah,
Ellie was like, "Holy shit!" like which at that point she was not in great condition either. She had been stabbed in the side,
yeah,
after falling into the trap. I did like the little interaction uh, when they cut her down, and then
yeah,
see the guy get scared, and she laughed.
yeah. You
She's
shit
like,
your
"What are you
pants.
laughing at? Looks like you shit your pants." And then she got bit, and she was like, where are we going?"
Yeah.
I liked that little bit.
That was a good moment,
But
and like the little interrogation with the bigger guy was kind of fun. Though. Oh, until she killed him. But
and so you finally run into Abby, and the first thing she does, instead of like killing her, is cut her down. At this
mhm.
point, she was like, she was had the rational thought of like, I can't kill her like this. Like
Well, so at that moment, I thought the whole plan was over. Like this isn't. This is
it
about getting off.
was
Like
it
at
was.
that point, it's like she sees the despair, and Ellie sees all this, and for the I don't know 2 minutes, it was that she cut her down, and they got Lev, and
Yeah,
then like, oh,
I mean the
now when they
reaction. So the reaction was like, because before even Abby even saw her, she said like, "Please let me help me." And then she looks up and she's like, "It's you." And she's like, I'm dead." And then
Mhm.
she cuts Abby down, and the first thing Abby does is go after Lev.
Yeah,
That was like that was when I was like, all right, Ellie sees what's going on here, and Abby's like, hey, there's boats over here, and then you
yeah.
follow Abby out, and you both go to a different boat. I'm like, all right, good,
See, in my mind, like, well, one, I was like, oh, they're gonna get in. And, I told you a couple days ago. I'm like, they're gonna have to team up at some point. And he's like, no, there's no way. And I'm like, you're probably right. And this is the only scenario where I thought, oh, this is how they team up because whatever past they had didn't matter anymore because they got to get the fuck away of this island. And then and when they went to different boats, I'm like, you can ride in the same boat with her. It's not going to be the worst thing in the world. And I realized, no, that's not what she's doing. And this is the part where Ellie, I was
but
like, I was done with Ellie.
no,
Uh,
so that's what they were going to do. Ellie was going to leave. She had given up. she put her stuff in the boat, and then she had that panic attack again, where she
Yeah.
saw Joel's head getting crushed by a golf club, and then she's like, "I can't let you leave." Because for her, she cannot be good until she completes her mission. And Abby at that point was the scar that Owen talked about. She she had given up. She's like, I'm not gonna fight you.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, one, look at me, look
Yeah.
at her. She is in no condition to have a fight. She's barely alive as it is, and she's got this kid who you know nothing about. We like Lev, so we're like, he's hurt.
Mhm.
You need to let her go. But for her, for
Well,
Ellie,
she should have.
she doesn't have any positive or negative. He's a friend of Abby's.
Lev is the only reason why she's alive.
Why Ellie's alive?
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
Andy.
Well, well, yes, but that
So
doesn't mean
I mean,
you're not
I
gonna
mean,
have.
Ellie was laying there when she saw this bald kid look at. I mean, and that's what I mean. Again, because it's fresh in my mind, not
Yeah.
a year and a half later. But you know,
Even so, like, I mean, Abby let her live twice. She should have let it go, but she didn't. And I was still like, at this point, I was just tired. I was ready for her to just give. It's all right now. We can pass up, and I understand why she did what she did. But when she threatened Lev, that's where I was like, all right, Ellie, this is wrong. That
Mhm.
was my one. You crossed the line here, at Ellie, and Abby's like, all right, let's do this thing. And then they have the most. I wrote down just some adjectives about this fight: hollow, unnecessary, desperate, raw, and ugly. Like, it was the most, like, devastating boss fight. It was
Mhm.
it was not a victory boss fight. It was never like, this is this was the climax of the game, and this was the last thing you wanted to do, was have this
Yeah.
fight with this emaciated enemy. Like even Goku, like, his whole thing is, you got to be at full strength for
Yeah.
us to have have an honest battle, man. And Ellie's in just such turmoil that she can't turn it off. She's having panic attacks. She can't think straight. All she sees is and hears is the sounds, and she's haunted by this, and she's got to do something to make it stop. And so she
Mhm.
keeps going, and they have this knockout, drag out, like, very uninspired fight. Like, neither of them act like they want
We're
to
into
do this.
Neither of them really were into it. They were just like,
They
yeah,
were just doing it, and then finally Ellie gets her down and just is holding her down and holding her down under the water. And you're like, just let her go. Just stop
yeah,
this. Just you've won. You it's over, Ellie. And
yeah.
she keeps holding her there, and you're like, Ellie, Ellie. You're just
This
like
this is very this
like
is very
just
similar to the first fight where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
yeah.
I didn't partake in it,
Hang on.
but then
Hang on.
um,
You're stuttering. All right. But yeah, exactly. It was just like the first fight, but this was even more like, just like, pathetic. And
yeah,
but this was the moment that got me to tear up. Was like, you just seeing the anguish and the pain that Ellie was focusing on killing Abby. That's how she was, like, just venting all this built up in her, all this guilt she felt for how she treated Joel and how they left things before he died, and basically ignoring him and shutting him off after finding out what he did, and feeling all those feelings and pushing them onto Abby. And then she finally sees the flash of the first time of these panic attacks or she sees Joel just sitting on the porch,
Hmm.
which made her stop. And then having her just totally break down was devastating. Just having her,
Yeah.
and Abby just gets up and gets in the boat and leaves, and Ellie's just bawling her eyes out.
Yeah. That was that's the best ending I could have hoped for. Well, after the game that we played, like the fact that that's how that game ended is I've been thinking about and then when she goes back and sees um farmhouse and sees all her stuff in the room and her fingers have been bitten off and stuff, and then she sets the guitar down. I'm bulldozing it only to make to the point of like I can't tell if I want to say that it was a happy ending. Because the not happy ending for me is Ellie died, and the fact that Ellie is still alive, it is happy to me as a viewer.
Yeah.
But I know it wasn't. But like I know she's not. Well, she wasn't the same person since Joel died. But like she's not Ellie anymore. So it's hard to say like how I feel about it as how it tied up this 2-game story of when she goes and plays the guitar and she can't
play
and
those notes because her fingers are bitten off.
it was rough.
I mean, again, from this me saying this story. This is not the story I wanted. I didn't want this sequel. Has nothing to do with how compelling the story was. It was
It's
a
true.
very compelling, engaging story. It just it's just heartbreaking. It just
Yeah.
it just broke everything. It was such an ugly. There's all the joy that happened at the beginning of this game, and it killed every bit of it.
Yeah.
And that was the point. And I mean, I would have been happy with the original that like maybe Joel has to die at the end, but there's when that happens usually there's a resolution like okay, he did
Yeah.
this, and when it happened at the beginning, it can't get better.
Right.
And
Right. It I what I liked about how it ended, outside of the fact that I was still alive, is that I was starting to think that the game forgot it was Ellie's story. A little bit. Like you spent so much time. I mean, you spent a lot of time as Ellie, but you spent the last part's the part you remember, right? You spent the last half of the game as not Ellie, and then all of a sudden it's taking the focus away from her, which is the point. And it's like again, I don't try to make it about how I feel the game should have gone, but I'm like, if the game ended and you didn't get to play as Ellie again, I don't know if I would have liked it, because I would have respected it, blah blah blah. I just would have been like, this was Ellie's story, and then you just told me to suck it up, and now it's Abby's story.
yeah. Couple more things to point out. So they had the which we just discovered this, or I did, the future days. So at the beginning of the game, Joel gives Ellie a guitar after singing "Future Days" to her, which to me and probably to her sounded like just this cheesy song that Joel had written for Ellie.
Yeah.
Turns out it wasn't that; it was a Pearl Jam song, but he chose that song to sing to Ellie, and
Yeah.
that became a refrain for this game.
Yeah.
In a musical sense, it was a callback. They kept coming back to it every time she found a guitar. She would play those chords, and then Dina walked in the music shop. She's like, "What are you playing?" "Oh, nothing." Like that this is her thing, and
Yeah.
uh, part of this the whole story is about the words of that song about losing
Yeah.
yourself and allowing yourself to get lost in
Yeah.
uh, whether despair or um, just sadness. Honestly, it's he said, if surely if I were to usually, I'd surely lose myself, and
Yeah.
it all harkens back to as the game progressed, Ellie was losing more and more of her soul, of herself, of her identity
Yeah.
that we had come to know her as, and because of what Abby did at the beginning, it unraveled her throughout the end of the game, and then she had a moment where at the farmhouse where she could have not pursued this path,
Mhm.
and um, Tommy guilted her into doing it, and she chose that path. She probably would have chosen it without his
Eventually.
him giving her any guilt. Like if he had just said, "Hey, I heard what's her face is in Santa Barbara," like that might have been enough to send Ellie off. But I'm okay in blaming Tommy for Ellie's because she's an 18-year-old kid. She's a kid. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm giving Ellie a big pass because she's had an awful go of it. I
Yeah.
and at the end of the game, Ellie's not a good person,
Right.
and they tore her down from the beginning of this game and made her feel like she was worthless.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It.
to me, Joel should have said in that reconciliation scene that uh, at the very end, uh, when she was like, "You took that from me. I was supposed to die in that hospital. My life was supposed to mean something, and now it doesn't."
It does to me.
And
Some,
and he kind of said that he's like, "I would have done the same thing. If I would have gotten a second chance to do that, I'd have done it again." Like,
it was weird
it,
the way that was phrased. I was confused for a second because
yeah,
he's like
it,
he's saying that you would let her do it, and then I'm like, no, you would have done the
no,
exact same thing.
he would have
Yeah.
done the exact same thing. And to me, that sounded like an Abby statement.
Hmm.
He did it for him. It's what
Yeah.
it sounded like to me. And instead, it shouldn't have been about Joel. It wasn't about Joel. Like it was kind
Well,
of about Joel.
initially it was. I
It
mean,
was
you
about
even said it was a selfish.
it was both a selfish act, but it was also a parental act
Yeah.
because she didn't have a choice, and there wasn't a way to give her a choice in that moment. And
Yeah.
honestly was kind of hoping that we would find the Fireflies in Santa Barbara, and I would have liked to see her actually meet up with Abby in Santa Barbara with the Fireflies and find out what was going on and say, "Hey, we could still do that, make that cure." And then
Yeah.
Ellie getting the choice at this point to
Yeah.
say whether she wants to or not, and then say no,
Yeah. Yeah.
and walk away because then it would have given Ellie the choice of, "Hey, I could save the world if I want to now," and then she walks away from it instead of Joel taking that choice away from her. I was like,
Yeah.
she didn't get the choice. That's my what I keep coming back to. She didn't get the choice.
Yeah. I Yeah. So another thing, kind of factoid wise, so the when you beat the game and you get the new game plus screen where you see the cleared beach and you see the thing on the end there, I thought that it was the prison that you just saved Abby from, but it's actually the Firefly house.
Are you?
Um, yeah,
I heard
yes,
someone
I
say that.
heard it
Are
from
you
the horse's
sure?
mouth. I heard it from the horse's mouth.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Um,
Neil did say,
on a spoiler cast with Neil Druckmann, he said No, it's the Catalina Island that so Abby has found the fireflies. Abby and Lev have found the fireflies. So, but the thing is, he even admits, he's like, the structures look too similar, because the entire time, like, you just look at that, I'm like, oh, that's the exact same place I just saved Abby from.
Yeah, Abby got
So
to this shore that I thought it was the same shore you landed on initially that we
yeah,
saw her boat on, and then we did this big loop and got ourselves over to this resort, and
right,
then you take this little short boat ride that she took, and that's how they escaped. I
right.
thought it
But
was
no,
just across the
yeah,
bay, but
yeah.
so it was
No,
so
I
he
thought,
yeah.
yeah. So, I don't know if there's going to be another game, and then, like, just like you said with last one, I definitely don't think there needs to be one. Um,
Yeah,
if
no.
they do make another one, it'll be, I'll play it and I'll probably feel really similarly about it. But I
I
think
don't
the
know if I
story.
would play it.
You don't think so? No, I think you would. I know you would.
I would play it, but man, I didn't want this game. I didn't want it to be like this.
I sympathize with what you're saying about it's not the story you wanted. Um, I'm glad that this is a story we got in a way. I mean, I don't know if I love everything that happens, but it, it. I'm not trying to be all artsy, whatever, but I think it did definitely show me a different way to tell a story, because it kind of breaks it breaks away from the traditional, oh, this is definitely the bad guy, this is definitely the thing that you have to do. It definitely reformats that to be like, what if there is no bad guy, or what if everyone's the bad guy? And instead of making it like, I mean, The Last of Us had a happy-ish ending, but this was definitely not a happy ending.
No.
I mean, comparatively, and to allow, like, if it was a story um, of revenge still, and the fireflies that are left come to try to kill Ellie and Joel, and then they do it all, and then as Joel's final act, he sacrifices himself so Ellie can go off to do something. Like, that would have been it would have still been told really well and have been really nice, but it would have been a story we've already seen. It would have been
Yeah.
kind of almost Uncharted in a way, where it's like, all the heroes are going to come out good at the end.
Right.
Whereas, like,
There were no heroes in
I
this
mean, I
game.
don't know. I don't want to say, like, any piece of art that's goal is to subvert expectations. I think if that's their goal,
Yeah.
is dumb. But I think that when it happens naturally, it's interesting. It's kind of
Yeah.
hard to say what the theme of this game is. Like,
I mean, Neil said the theme of the game was revenge.
yeah. He
Right.
also said that was a lie. But you have to watch that. You have to watch the spoiler cast.
I do want to watch the spoiler cast with Neil. I mean,
basically, he just says that what he said was that he says the first game was about love and the second game was about hate. And he said actually they're both about love, and just the what ends you'll go to because of love, both
yeah.
positive and negative. But I told you that if there is a third game, that I think it'd be about forgiveness. It'd be a redemption story for, I guess, Ellie, because because of the way it ends, with that, because of her saying to Joel, like, I don't know if I can forgive you, but I'll try. And I secretly hope that that's what she's hoping out of Dina, is to get some forgiveness. And also, I mean, if there is a third game, I imagine we're going to see most of the same characters. Ellie, Dina, Tommy, Abby, Lev.
Yeah.
At least those 5 characters we'll probably see again, and most likely they will interact with each other. So it would be interesting to see that anger that's hopefully no longer there, or not in the same way, become. I mean, but then again, that goes back to the whole like, is seeing a third movie or game where they all become best friends to fight a a greater evil. Like, I don't know if I need to see that, and that's kind of why I don't think there
Right.
needs to be a part two. I think if they do like offshoots where they tell different stories,
See,
like
I think
if
they
they do
shot
the
themselves in the foot in this game with that. This game just showed that everywhere has the same story.
yeah, yeah,
We saw it. We've seen it in Boston. We saw it in Utah. We saw it uh, in
in
Colorado.
Washington,
We saw it
yeah,
uh, in Washington. We saw it in Santa Barbara. Every place is exactly the same. There are people taking advantage of the situation that's started off probably with good intentions, trying to protect people, became a militant faction and
or a cult,
or a
or
terrorist organization. Yeah, we didn't talk really hardly any about the scars yet, and
yeah,
um, other than Yara and Lev, again to me are the only good redeemable characters in this game,
yeah.
and uh, I just. But I lost my train of thought again.
You
But
said they shot themselves in the foot because they've already said that everywhere is having the same story.
yeah, so unless
Yeah,
they give Ellie the option in the next game of becoming the cure, again at this point there's no humanity to save
right.
other than in Jackson where they were the only ones living in some kind of like reasonable
Normal
society.
looking. Yeah,
Like they were willing to help. I mean, they rescued Abby when they got that when she got in trouble. Like,
yeah,
hey, come down to the city and we'll give you resupply, get your stuff. They were being a rational town, and everywhere else is just awful.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where Dog goes next. I think, well, like if we see anything left in this world, we're not going to see it for at least 7 to 10 more years.
Yeah,
At least
I'd imagine
from
if
this.
you're Neil, you got to make a happy game next. Like you got to
Yeah,
do something
or just
totally different.
not a depressing game next.
Yeah,
And even in kind of way, Uncharted 4 was not depressing, but it was, it was still grounded and rooted in some sort of like realism. Like just go to space or something. Go to space, do Mission Impossible. I don't know. Like,
yeah, well,
yeah,
I still think space is an option, um, because there's just so much as far as the books and hang on, you're frozen again. There's so
you
much
were
as far as
frozen,
oh
but
yeah,
I can hear you.
as books and movies and cards and games and magazines that were space related, which I get that Ellie was a space nut, but they were in places that weren't like her room that you would see these like references to like specific like graphic novels or something like that. So I could see them doing
Yeah,
some kind of space sci-fi adventure next. A little bit windy out there, and or doing the Mission Impossible thing that we've talked about before. But before we get too
yeah,
far off of what they're going to do next, do you have any other? I mean, I know I'm very negative about this game, and that's only because that's the point of this conversation and of this game was to create a. He wasn't trying to please everybody. He wanted to create a conversation point.
right.
They wanted us to have this
Hmm.
conversation and debate what it was about and fall on
Yeah.
either side
No,
of
I,
the
I, mean, I don't.
argument. So I mean, they definitely
No,
succeeded in what they were trying to do.
yeah. No, I mean, I don't think you're being like overtly negative. I think that when you said it at the beginning of the podcast that it's not the story that you wanted, but then you clarified later. I thought like you were just gonna be like just kind of crapping all over it, but you weren't, and like your points are pretty valid. But like the thing about it is, it's like it's you know um the I mean, games have the right to be criticized, and even really good pieces of art have the right to be criticized. What's not okay is what's unfortunately happening with a lot of people reacting to this. They think that they own these characters in the
Right,
story,
right.
and I mean, and that's hard. Like I tweeted out this morning, and it probably follows the same vein, even though I don't intend it the same way. It's like I don't necessarily care to hear other people's opinions. Like I like the podcasts and reviews that I've listened to about it, I thought about not listening to, not because I don't care about other people's opinions. It's just like maybe a lot of the times what happens when I watch other people's opinions is that it's not because I'm not convicted in my own, but it's like they make sometimes more sense than what goes on in my brain, because sometimes I don't have a definitive reason for why I like something or don't like something. Sometimes I just like it, I liked it or I didn't.
Yeah,
But then when I hear someone else explain like why this was bad or this was good, then I'm like, oh, you're right, that was good. That was so like sometimes I don't like listening to, just because like I need to figure out what I'm doing, which is why I still don't really want to go to the internet to see what the rest of the internet has to say,
right.
because
Well,
I
I
don't
suspect
care.
I might check it back in a couple weeks. I think a lot of this
Yeah,
early hate is just first it's hate on Naughty Dog to be hate on Naughty Dog. I don't know
yeah,
where it comes from. Like uh, I don't have a problem with any of the controversial topics they brought up. I never felt like it was necessarily shoehorned. Uh,
mm-mm.
I think the biggest one is Lev. Is probably the
Yeah,
biggest uh, social issue that uh, Neil Druckmann is getting a lot of crap for, because uh, Lev is a trans man or boy. Like he was born as a lily, and he apparently
hmm,
felt like uh, that he was a boy and not a girl. And Yara supported that decision, which is why they were running from the Seraphites,
that's their bites.
they,
Yeah,
who we didn't talk about at all. Which, if again, I guess if you're watching this, I don't have to explain them, but um, that was
well,
the whole purpose of them running away, was because Lev broke the rules and was called an
yeah,
apostate, and they were going to be killed because of what
yeah,
Lev did. And whether or not that was a rash or silly decision on Lev's part is irregardless of, he shouldn't deserve to die for
right,
making this choice to cut his hair because he didn't
yeah.
feel like a girl. Like, I mean, he wanted to be like one of the young men who were going to be warriors in their tribe, I guess.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think it is interesting with the Seraphites. Like for some reason I really like cult stories.
hmm
Um, I mean, I think they're creepy and I think they're weird and all the stuff. But this, like when you see like in like the Book of Eli or any of these post-apocalyptic, there's always like that one group that's just like the faction of devout religious people that they've taken it upon themselves to create their own new religion and all this stuff. And I thought,
right,
and I just thought that was fascinating to see that in a context, because when I like, and I mean the thing is like all these people, especially most of them being adults that you're fighting, obviously, um, we're alive and around when the world went to shit. So like to make a deliberate choice to like not use the old world
yeah,
like weapons and technologies and stuff like that. I thought was interesting, and I really liked the way they moved around with the using the high towers and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
I thought was really interesting, and um, yeah, I mean, I guess I haven't brought them up mainly just because like while they are important to the world of the story
They're a bit
and to
throwaway.
those, yeah, I mean, I guess it's world building more so than plot driven,
Mhm.
with the exception of like the last part where you go to the island, and
Right.
but it's not like that stuff is going on in the world, but it's not important to what you're doing as the characters. Um, yeah,
A
I
couple
mean, I
things.
think I've. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I'm changing subject. So
Oh no, no, I was just gonna say in terms of the game, I feel like I've said all of my um all of my thoughts. Like I did think it dragged a little bit near at the end. In terms of I just didn't want to play anymore. I just wanted to get the story. Um, I think all of the actors did an incredible job. Um, I thought the design team did an incredible job. Um, the environments and facial animations and stuff like that. Like, I mean, that's almost like just
Yeah, I mean, like some
regurgitation
of
of
the,
it's a Naughty Dog game. It's
but it's even like more impressive though. Like when like just walking around, like when Ellie's upset, you can look at her eyes and
mhm.
just see like the pain or like the shock or the just like you could see it in her eyes and on her face. Like Dina is a little bit more generic as far as like her standard faces. Um,
Mhm.
but some of the other things I thought were really neat is Abby's constant fear of heights. Um,
Yeah,
what was really neat is when you would walk to the ledge of something, like it would start to
it
stutter and shake and like wobble,
yeah
and she would start to hyperventilate. And I thought that was very clever, like to make that not only like a story beat, but to actually incorporate it in the game, like when there was nothing for her to catch you, like when if you stepped off the ledge, it was going to kill you. Like it made her freak out, like and made it more intense. And
yeah
I noticed it like just by accident. I was like, oh, I noticed the camera wobble a little bit. I was like, oh, that was weird. And then I heard her breathing, and I was like, oh wait, she's scared of heights. And so I would like walk to the edge. I remember there was the one point like you could walk out on the edge of the tower, and she's like, "Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this?" Because there was like stuff to pick up at the edge. There was like it was just like weapon parts or something. Like wasn't important, but like you go out there and she's like, "Why am I here?"
yeah
uh,
yeah.
so beats like that, as far as the gameplay is concerned, were I thought very well done. I thought the notes that you found around the world were very well created, um, which really gave Isaac his own like you saw the buildup of Isaac in the
Mhm.
notes you found around the world, and I thought that was really cool. And then to actually meet this guy that you're seeing all these notes and you see these like wolf reports or you know former whatever, like, oh, this guy's was here or this guy was here and this is what he was doing, like seeing the Fedra reports of this Isaac character rising up, and then to him being the leader of the wolves, like it gave him uh like this a status. Your eyes froze like half
Yeah,
shut, so it looked like you were like stoned. Anyway, and so things like that. Seeing the world decrepit, like seeing Seattle, that first like open section you get was really neat. I don't think they did that quite enough later
yeah.
anymore.
They did it once, and then they just kind of
Well, yeah,
lineared it
they
up.
did it once, and it made it seem like, oh, this is how the game is going to be because they showed you how the map thing worked, and then as you went to places, like, okay, I've got everything done here, and then after that section, it just stopped being like that.
Mhm.
I thought that was kind of odd. Uh,
Yeah,
but like seeing the world destroy like it was, it reminded me of Horizon Zero Dawn, seeing like the old world, seeing like the
yeah.
building being overtaken. I did have a couple critiques about, and I mentioned to you before, like finding a 100-year-old tree in the middle of an intersection was a little strange.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
when you first get to Seattle and you have this bus stop next to all these huge trees, I'm like, wait, that's a bus stop. This would have been an intersection because you look up and you see like where the stoplight was. I was like, but that tree is like 100 and some odd years old because it's so huge. I was like, that wouldn't have had time since the collapse for that tree to grow
Mhm.
like that. Like, we should see a whole. And this is a whole dense forest like around this bus stop, and I was like, okay, well, it should have been a little less
Yeah,
dense, and less old. But other than that, like you could break a window and look inside a car. They were most of the time fairly detailed. Some
yeah,
were a little blocky textures and stuff like that, but
yeah.
that
I thought it
wasn't
was weird that there
important.
was rarely anything inside of a car. Like you could break the windows, but there was rarely anything in them.
I
There's
was
like
I'm
one time that there was.
yeah, I'm so disappointed that, like, when you saw cop cars, you didn't open the trunk. It's like common knowledge that you open the trunk and there's shotguns and there's ammo in the back of these police
Mhm.
cars, and if they're still shut, like, you should be able to open them and, like
Yeah. Well, and I believe in the first game, the first time you equip a silencer, you pull it from the hood of a car,
mhm,
from the engine. You like pull the gas. I don't
filter,
know, the air
oil
filter or
filter, oil filter.
oil filter to use as a silencer. And I was
Dude,
just surprised that you never uh, did that
well,
at all. You never looked into hoods of cars.
you never looked in the hoods of cars, but you did find oil filters and things around the world that ended up becoming,
Well, yeah, that's true. Um,
uh, silencers, which would not work, by the way, but
well, sure. There were several times where like I feel like I've just been collecting nonstop, and then I go to open up the menu and be like, "There's nothing I can build." I loved that. I don't know if this was like this in the first game, but I loved the sound I made when when it said you could finally make something.
oh, yeah,
Like you would make a little, and I'm like, "Oh, great!" And I can make another health pack or whatever.
right.
I used everything for the most part. Like, not in like those games where you hold on to something you never use. I pretty much always like. I think the only thing I didn't use very much was smoke bombs.
I didn't use
Uh,
smoke bombs once.
I think I used them when I didn't have anything else, and I just felt the need. I had to throw something to
And
distract
I really
somebody.
only used the trip mines a couple times. I thought the pipe bombs were more useful because you could throw them. Trip mines, you had to, like, watch someone's pattern, see where it was at. I'm like, okay, or like place a bomb and then try to gather people there, which would have been great if you had a bomb that you could throw and you had a
Yeah,
Molotov. But half the time the Molotovs didn't kill everybody it touched. Like the
yeah.
Molotovs were
Well,
nerfed in this game like crazy.
I felt like they always killed people, but they didn't always get rid of the infected.
What
Or
Molotovs?
yeah, I never really had a problem with Molotovs unless it was against infected.
See, I would like throw. I had gathered them all up and threw a Molotov at people, and it would kill like one or two people, and like
Mm,
even the dogs got away from it. I'm like, I saw dogs get murdered by the in the demo.
yeah,
Um,
I
I didn't
like the
I used
flamethrower.
Molotovs. I did like the flamethrower. Didn't use that a lot except on like the big guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that fight. It was
See, I didn't have that big of a time. Like, I was dreading it, and then it happened. And honestly, the fight with the big guy, I didn't die once. It wasn't until he split off into smaller guys that I started having issues with the fight. Uh, um,
the only problem with smaller guys is I try to treat them like they were
Stalkers.
normal stalkers,
Oh,
and they weren't. They were. He was like,
they were like OP.
I
Yeah,
was like, oh, I can't have a hand to
yeah.
hand combat with you. Well, that's annoying because I just ran out of shotgun shells because I used it on the big guy, and he is
All on the
not
big guy.
dying.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think of other moments like that in the game that stood out to me. Um,
Although I didn't mind
like the
seeing Abby killed multiple times, but
huh?
I didn't mind
Oh,
seeing
like
Abby
when
get
she
killed
died.
like a dozen times
Yeah,
by this monster.
yeah. I always thought it was interesting when you went back to a place that you were as with Ellie, or that you went to with
Yeah,
Ellie, either before Ellie got there or after. Which I don't really think there was a time there you got there after Ellie had been there, except for
the
the
aquarium.
aquarium. Um,
I li-
but I just seeing the same place and from different perspectives, um, it made it feel like they were different
Like when you went
locations
to the
together.
hospital and you just walk in, like you swam up. I'm like, oh wait, I don't have to sneak in to this.
Yeah,
Like I could just walk up to the gate and be like, hey guys, it's me,
yeah.
and that's
Uh,
what happened.
there was definitely some times where I was annoyed with. I mean, not just because sometimes it would just be encounter after encounter after encounter, but it would be like the one time where you had to steal the boat as Ellie, and you had to steal the boat from the wolves, and the way you had to navigate was swimming. And you would pop up, and immediately they would see you, and you go to swim again, and that whole sequence, I completely butchered that. Like
Oh,
that's one moment where the way I did it did not feel like the right way to do it because I just left them there and hopped into a boat.
Yeah, I mean, I went to the left, popped up, saw one dude walking back and forth. I waited till he turned, I hopped up, killed him, and then went up the stairs, killed everybody else, and then um, I think my favorite weapon was the explosive arrow
Mm-hmm.
because they were like arrows in which they were like stealthy, and if you, but it didn't matter where you hit them, there was a one hit kill, and they still didn't know where you were at because the explosion happened away from you, and
Yeah.
so it drew people to that location and not my location, which was great. And then even if you hit them in the leg, like it blew up, so they were dead. And it was great when they were like, when you would shoot it and then someone else walked or like right next to him and you got a twofer. That was always
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
And then how often did you like survey the scene after you had a
Oh,
every
all the
time,
time.
every time?
Much more at the beginning. It was more so than near the end. I mean, I'd always look around to collect stuff, but in terms of just like seeing the damage that I did, yeah. I
I
remember the
remember,
first time I laid down a trip mine and seeing the dismembered guy. I think it was in the elementary school, I think, and uh, this girl who I thought I was about to die because this girl kept shooting me, and I'd laid down a trip mine and forgot about it, and I walked away, and then it went off, and then I went over to her, and she was in many parts of the room.
yeah, um, yeah. That's usually what happened with the uh, explosive arrows too. I remember the first time someone had walked up to me while I was like prone in the grass, and I popped up with a shotgun and shot him at, like towards the head in point blank. And then when I got done with the encounter, I'm like, that person like should have lost the top half of their body, basically, because I mean I was
Mm.
right there, and then I went and found them, and they had lost like the top half of their body. I was like, I was right, yeah, they're gone.
Yeah, the shotgun was one of my favorites, and I also liked the long rifle for certain elements because at least for clickers, because while you had to while it gave away your position to clickers, it was always one shot headshots. Except because like with the silenced pistol, with the clickers, they wouldn't go, and sometimes even with the infected, it wouldn't go with the
Even with
first
the
headshot. You had
people,
to do it.
like
No,
I
with
would
the
have
people, I never really had a problem.
with the people, I would headshot them, and like I'm like, you should be dead. I mean,
Yeah,
since when does this not like a one shot when I shoot you in the head? That annoyed me a couple times. It ruined like encounters. That was a couple of the times where I would just restart. I'm like, well, that was supposed to kill you, like because it was a
yeah,
headshot with the silencer. And
agreed.
then sometimes the silencer, like they would just know where you're at. That shot came from over there. I'm like, but I had the silencer, and then they would come after my location. I'm like, that was weird.
Yeah,
So I had a couple of things like that. Um,
yeah.
I didn't have any other like. I'm trying to think of any kind of like glitching or. Uh,
Um. Oh, I did record. I fell through the world one
oh,
time.
really?
Um. I there's a moment where you're with Lev, and you're crawling up, and I think you're trying to get to the hospital. Uh, and there's this bar or whatever that you're going into, but you had to go through the window, and the window, uh, it's the entire wall is windows, and there's infected inside, and they could potentially see you, but they're facing the other way. And there's a way to climb through the window around. You're up on a balcony and
Yeah.
around the way. And I was having trouble figuring out the best way to approach it because I'm like, because if I was going to shoot one of these infected, this glass breaks because the entire thing has glass except for the top part
Right.
of. And so I'm like, oh, I could throw a bottle and get them to move. And one time I did that, it alerted the infected, and they came out and chased me off the balcony. Well, so one time I went to do it, and then there was also two shamblers in there, and I thought I was in the clear, and I went ahead and shot one of them, and I thought I was good, and I wasn't. And then the shambler climbed out of the window, and I tried to run away, and I tried to go this way, but I went backwards, and I fell out, and I landed in the Seattle River, and I didn't die. I just was swimming, and when I looked up, it was just I saved it. But when I looked up, I could see the the plan of the map of the game,
Oh yeah.
where all the zombies were attacking Lev, but I was in the water, except it was just sky. It just looked like abyss. And then and I was just treading water and I was breathing. And if I hit circle, I dove and I had to exit, climb it. And eventually, I just had to drown myself so I could get back up to where it was.
Yeah.
I couldn't shoot. I couldn't do anything from it. That was the only time I ever had a glitch like that severe.
No, I can't think of any kind of glitching or uh, moments like that. Um, hopefully we don't lose connection. There's a thunderstorm rolling through.
Yeah.
Um, well,
But I mean, we can wrap up the points.
I was on the point. I was going to say
Glitching.
no. I was moving away from the glitching. Do you have another point?
Well, I have a question. Unless you don't want me to ask you anything.
Go for it.
Well, I just said, would you play this game again?
I don't have a desire to play this game again. One, I don't want to
Yeah.
see the Joel scene again.
I've already
And
seen it twice.
um, and like the platinum doesn't look hard, but I just
Yeah.
like I started it back up just to play the first like the opening again. I want to do the snowball fight and see the
Hmm.
interaction with all the people because that opening scene when you're walking through town and the people, it doesn't feel like staged. It feels
Yeah.
like the people are just living their life. Someone's delivering, like pulling stuff out of the back of a truck. There are people like there's a mom walking her kid around the corner. Like there's squirrels that run across the street and then jump up on the awning and they stop and they look around and then they climb up on the roof and it's just like it
Hmm.
just felt like a world, a very believable, lived-in world, and I thought that was really good. And I basically got to the point where they're about to go out and do their patrols, and I just like I don't want this.
Hmm.
I don't want to do this again, because I just the gameplay was fun, but this I didn't want the story. I didn't.
Hmm.
I don't even think that's the right like phrase. It's not. I didn't want the story. So like, it just didn't. It didn't do it for me.
Hmm.
And that's because I just didn't agree with what the direction.
Yeah.
I guess it's like people look at how people treat how Disney treated Skywalker, Luke Skywalker. They didn't like the direction of his character arc
Yeah.
because why would Luke uh, try to kill his nephew in his sleep? Like what Luke,
Hmm.
who saw the good in his father, one of the awful, human, or Sith lords, he was able to work through that, but he couldn't handle a kid who might turn out bad. That just seemed like a stretch for Luke's character, and so and this whole event, this whole game tried to paint Joel and Ellie as the bad guys, and they weren't the bad guys for me in this
Hmm.
story.
I just don't agree that that's what the game was trying to do. Like, I agree that
It's
I don't think it made it feel like it's the bad guys. I think it was just showing that there's a bad guy for everybody. Like, I don't. They're Abby's bad guys, but they're not necessarily the world's bad guys.
right.
It's not the story's bad guys. And I mean, I understand what you're saying. I just I don't come down it on that way. I think especially how it ended. Um, I feel like that's not what at least it
Yeah,
was trying to go
I mean
for.
the ending where
Um,
she leaves the guitar up in the empty house that Dean had left, and then you see her walking down the road or down the lawn to some unknown destination. Um, it can be either interpreted as her just giving up and walking away from everything. I'm hoping that she goes back to Dina and begs for like forgiveness. I can't imagine Dina be like, no. Uh, my thought is she went back to Jackson because she had no one there because you left. You left
Yeah.
her by herself. Like, what was she going to do? She got to go back to Jackson, and
Yeah.
and Maria sent all her people to go help move her, and they
Yeah.
left your stuff here because you left,
Yeah.
and you're probably not coming back because you're going to die.
Yeah.
And
No, yeah.
I did want to hit on a couple of things. Just a couple of things. This game was so long.
Yeah.
Because it did so many good things. I mean, it wasn't a bad game. That's the important thing to note here. It wasn't a bad game. It was a great game. I didn't like the story, but
Right.
I loved the museum.
Hmm. Museum was great.
The flashback sequences that we got. That was the story I was craving. I needed them to have that story that come together. Yeah, I needed them to have the reconciliation of, yeah, I lied. I lied about what happened, but this is what happened. They had 12, and 12 is the number I keep remembering. There was a dozen other people that were immune that they had tried to create a vaccine from, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
None, at no point did it work. They didn't know they were going to be able to do this, and they were going to kill you without asking. They weren't giving anybody a choice, and that is not the correct way to do things.
Hmm.
She would have signed off, and Joel would have fought against it. Like, you don't need to do this. They've tried it before. He'd have been like, she would like, damn it, Joel, this is my life. I've got to do this. And if we could
Pause.
say,
My headset died.
but the most important part of that is that I just really wanted that bonding, which again, like you said, it would have been generic. It would have been a story that has been done before, and that's why the first game didn't need a sequel.
Yeah.
And that I stand by that. The first game didn't need a sequel. What they built here was incredible, and I can't wait to see what they do next. That's not Last of Us. That's not Uncharted. Like, they're incredibly talented. Neil's an incredibly talented writer, along with Haley is the other writer that hasn't been talked about very much until the game came out.
Yeah.
I thought it was weird. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
well, he's got another writer. It's not just Neil. And I liked how they at the end thanked Bruce Straley
Yeah. I was gonna say I
for
like
all
that
his
too.
work, because it seemed like he departed off just weird, uh, like, just out of the blue, like, hey, I'm out, and so I
Yeah.
thought that was kind of odd. So it was good to see that the appreciation post in there for him. Um, I don't know anything about this Haley Gross except she or he, I don't know. They helped write.
It's a she.
They helped write the story, and so um, I'm excited to see what they come up with next. Hopefully, it's a bit more lighter. Uh,
Yeah.
I would like to see just another fun story.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
or
Who's calling?
it's my take your meds alarm.
Yeah.
But that was Crash
Um,
Bandicoot. Speaking of Naughty
um,
Dog.
I think I don't know. I thought I was gonna replay Final Fantasy VII, and I didn't. And I don't know if I'm gonna replay the story. I think I might hop into some chapters to get some of the collectibles. But I'm gonna turn everything down to low, like
Yeah,
hear everything and
blow
all that
rings
stuff.
away.
Because I'd like to get the platinum. And I don't know. I this game's gonna resonate with me for a long time, just like the first one did. Just because of the way it told its story, and maybe it's not as revolutionary as I think it is, but I just
It is for games,
uh,
without a doubt.
well, it's just as I mean, that feeling is so cathartic, or visceral rather. Like, how many times can you say you've watched something that forces you to do something that you literally have to do if you want to move on?
Right.
Like, if you want to find out what, you have to do something that you're not going to like.
Yeah.
And like, the fact that we care so much about these characters that you don't like the story that they went with because you cared about those characters, and I don't like
Right.
having to punch this character that we've loved, and and all this stuff, and it's just like the I mean, it's the Game of Thrones thing a little bit. It's the kill your darling. It's like nothing is sacred. And honestly, I think that's another thing I like about it, with the exception of Tommy. It's that like these characters, like we always talk about in other movies that follow safer plot points. It's like, well, this person totally would have died. Like, there's
Yeah.
no reason why this person didn't die. And
Well,
like
see, I wasn't surprised about Jesse only because he reminded me of Glenn.
people
He
say
was
that, and
very
I'm
much
like, is it?
he was the
They
Glenn
all don't look the
character.
same, Josh.
I wasn't saying that. I'm
I'm
just
just
saying he
teasing.
was the
I'm just
Glenn
teasing you.
character. He was just like
See, someone else said that too, and I'm like,
he was the helpful,
this guy was
friendly.
cooler than Glenn. I mean, not that Glenn wasn't cool, but
No,
like, no,
I
I'm saying
disagree.
cool. This guy was
Oh,
like cool, and
okay,
Glenn was kind of nerdy. You know,
okay,
that's what I
yeah.
mean. I don't mean I liked him more than Glenn. I'm like, Jesse was like, it's all right, and Glenn would have been like, hey, we got to go do this. So
It was an interesting point to take all the. I've heard the criticism take all the major deaths out of the gameplay. Um,
oh yeah,
you don't kill Joel, you don't kill um, Abby or but no,
Jesse or
you don't kill Jesse, you don't kill Nora, you don't kill Manny, you don't kill any of the major
mm,
characters that you're actually out to kill, and
yeah,
that's a reasonable I think gripe with the game. They made he made it so cinematic that to put those deaths in the gameplay would have taken away from the cinematography of it.
yeah. Well, and also like I don't know that I need to do that. Like,
I mean, I would definitely not have wanted to kill Joel,
right.
um,
And
but
like if they made us do that, I don't think that would have been right.
I was surprised they didn't make us kill Jesse.
Um
Um,
well, you got to listen to the spoiler cast too, because he talks about his reasoning behind that too, and it makes a lot of sense. But even as a player, I didn't miss having to do those things often because I can't aim for shit. Like, what if I was using the flamethrower? What if like my camera
well,
was pointed somewhere else? And
I've heard that conversation, but I mean, it's the same thing as just pressing square to punch Ellie in the face. Like
oh yeah,
they could have scripted it to where you're just actively involved
oh yeah, yeah,
in that moment instead of just watching this cutscene because I other than affected, you don't kill anybody important.
yeah,
So, I mean that is not an unreasonable gripe about this game is that
yeah, yeah,
um all the important things that the whole reason you're out to do this thing is because you want to kill these people and you don't kill any of them.
yeah.
Ellie does
Well, yeah,
or
yeah,
Abby or Tommy. So,
yeah.
um but we skimmed over it. I think it's worth talking about the NASA the museum moment because
Oh yeah,
that would
yeah,
I mean one having the bond that game is what I wanted. That they're walking down, hey, I've got something to show you. Let's check this out. And then he pushes her into the water, and Ellie can swim. That's
yeah,
when you first realize Ellie can swim, which we knew from the trailer because they made it a like a tongue in cheek, like look, Ellie can swim kind of deal.
yeah.
Um, but having him push her in the water and him critique like, "Hey, you're getting better at this," and
Yeah.
uh,
I love like in those flashback moments is when they taught you new mechanics as well. Just in general, it's like, oh, it's kind of neat that they make that part of the experience instead of just, oh, by the way, this is how you do this.
and you did get that. The other part was, of the game I was looking for was in the first game you were Joel with Ellie.
Hmm.
You were playing as Joel with Ellie, and in this game, I was looking for playing as Ellie with Joel. With
Yeah,
this character you grown to respect because he made a hard choice that he's got to live with, and now you got to do whatever your plan was with him by your side. Like he's got
yeah,
your back. And so we had those little moments in these flashbacks where you're going to go to music store and get these strings or whatever, and then you run into this massive hall of infected and have this big drag out fight with Joel, and he's calling out where, hey, watch out behind you, look up, and actually being helpful, and uh, that was like a cool moment for me because you're actually being Ellie with Joel.
Yeah. No, that you're right. That whole sequence, and yeah, I mean that's what I've been hearing a lot of people like. What I wanted was those sections of the game as the game, and I appreciate that they were able to get those in there, and like going to get the music, the guitar strings, and then seeing more stories about the Jackson people. But no, that museum was probably the best part of the game. Like,
Yeah,
my favorite in terms of
that was
story.
the Salt Lake City zoo
Yeah.
moment, but even more so, where you got to explore this totally basically uninhabited. The only thing that was in there was a boar, right?
Yeah.
Like, uh, so there was no infected. There was nothing. There's no threat. You just got to walk around this museum and listen to Ellie just rant and rave, not rant, but like rave about all the dinosaurs and what they were doing, and then to go to sit into like an Apollo capsule, a space capsule, and pretend like she was taking off and have that moment with the helmet on, and
Yeah. That whole sequence is just like so um like you never get a moment in this game where there's like that magical realism of just like you actually get to see her happy and enjoying something completely just for herself and not a part of anything else, and not confusing, and not with other people. It's just a moment for her.
it's pure
um
joy.
yeah.
And of course, that's also before she finds out about
Salt
uh,
Lake City. But
Salt Lake City, and before I mean, she's like that the awful like I'll go back to Jackson, but we're done. Like this,
yeah.
that's just like he knew that was coming, and
Hmm.
especially since they retconned it, and it wasn't retconned. Maybe they were very explicit in the first game about like this cure was going to happen, but like to me, it was never it was never clear. So he didn't have that guilt of like he doomed humanity along with lying to her.
Hmm.
Like to me, that added a layer of like he is just an awful human being because he doomed humanity and lied to her about it. And to
Yeah.
where it was originally just he just lied about saving her from some awful people that were trying to make a cure but wasn't sure and wasn't going to give her choice.
Yeah.
Anyway, uh,
Well, Josh, we spent 2.5 hours talking about this
well,
game.
we sure did.
Is there any last big points you want to make
Last big points we're going to make are I cannot wait to play Ghost of Tsushima next week.
next week?
I've already got it
It'll
pre-ordered.
be it'll be a big sigh of relief.
I mean, it's not gonna. I don't expect it to be like a happy-go-lucky story,
No.
but it's a sucker punch game, so I expect it to be fun and and beautiful and I expect at the end we're gonna win. Like, like,
Yeah.
I and even if it's not like again, I don't know what to expect out of Ghost of Tsushima,
Right.
but I expect it to be fun and colorful, and I'm very excited about what that
Yeah.
holds.
It downloaded for me an hour, maybe.
Yeah,
Like normally, where that stuff at my apartment takes forever, over here it took an hour.
yeah.
I'm super excited about it. I'm very I keep seeing ads for it, so I'm definitely ready.
Um,
So that'll be our next big conversation piece.
sure. So, it's fresh, but do you think this takes your game of the year so far?
Yeah, I'd say. I actually made a folder on my PlayStation called Game of the Year, and right now there's only two games in it, which are Final Fantasy VII and this.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say I don't think there's too many others. For me, it's probably still Final Fantasy VII, and
Yeah.
um, Slay the Spire.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I mean,
Would you not
this,
put this in the category because you just didn't like the story?
I think the game itself probably deserves Game of the Year. Like what they built here, technically and gameplay wise, everything as far as like story of the year, eh, that would go to what they did with Final Fantasy, which was also something I disagreed with at the end. I didn't like the ending of because they went super crazy with and made it a very, you know,
Kingdom
what
Hearts did a little
Kingdom
bit.
Heartsified it a lot, and like and not so much the good way of Kingdom Hearts as the more
Yeah.
convoluted way of Kingdom Hearts. So
Yeah.
it's not like Final Fantasy VII is far and away the best. It's just it did a really it surprised everybody that what it was going to do. Whereas I don't think this necessarily surprised people that it was so good as
Mm.
for Last of Us. I think people were surprised by like with the direction they went,
Yeah.
and I am impressed with what they've built. But I'm not necessarily like shocked that they made one of the most beautiful PS4 games
Yeah.
with the PS5 coming up. I mean, they did the same thing last generation,
Yeah.
so it's not anything that's out of their wheelhouse.
Yeah. Well, maybe next week on Ware Gaming Weekly, we can talk about maybe at length the game of the year so far, or
Well,
games we're
I
excited.
think we did because there's nothing else to talk about
Yeah,
except
that's true. I've played a few other things, but
Game of the
not.
Year contenders.
Yeah, but
Uh, except Slay the Spire, incredible game.
yeah. All right, that's a
I haven't
show.
played it recently.
Thank you so much for sticking with us through this long decompressing of The Last of Us Part II. What did you think of the game?
Yeah,
Do you agree with Josh? Do you agree with
please
me?
put
Do
it in the
you have a
comments.
completely different opinion? We would welcome it greatly.
Is there anything we didn't talk about enough? I'm sure there. I mean, there was we really skimmed over the whole Dina and Ellie like arc of the story because
Mhm.
that was the good part of the story. It was
Yeah,
Dina and Ellie like the whole. It was like a road trip until they got to Seattle or like
yeah.
got to Abby. They were going through the music store. They were having a good time. Like they sang "Aha." Uh, uh,
Take on me.
take on me, and that rendition of it was great. And they just had all these great moments. Um, and Dina was like, the they were like, it was like an old western, like you cowboy,
Yeah,
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, like they were
yeah,
like they were there together. They were had each other's backs. There was really cool moments
yeah.
leading up to it. So there are some things we just definitely skimmed over, like the Jewish
Oh, there's just so much to talk about.
synagogue, and you know
Oh yeah,
how Dina was like, "Yeah, I pray every now and then. I prayed before we left. Like I was, just because it makes me feel better. Like it gives me
Mhm.
hope." And the and leading up to that, like the whole that was one of the your first real encounters, not with the infected in this game, and with Dina. Like after Joel's death, like you had this moment where you're sneaking around these two runners and the clickers, and then I tried to run into this church and I notified them. They saw me, and so we had this moment where Dina's trying to climb up and I'm shooting from up on the scaffolding and
Mhm.
knocking out. And had all these really cool moments. And you had the rope where you're swinging across from one balcony to the other. There's a lot of good about this game, and I think I did focus a little bit too much on the negative because that whole build up at the beginning
Yeah,
it was really good. Even after Joel's death, it wasn't like the worst because by the time they got to Seattle, they had some decompression time, especially if you read through her journal a little bit. Like
yeah,
she's talking about spending all this time with Dina and like just having this relationship with her and her
yeah.
seeing her feelings. And so
I always try to make sure I read the journals before I like clocked out for the night. I always like skim through and
Yeah,
stuff like
seeing the
that.
drawings and seeing her little song lyrics where she would write a line and then
Yeah,
scratch out a word, and like I have books where in high school and in middle school where I would try to write songs and just do the same thing where
exactly.
write out, scratch out this lyric doesn't work here, or this line is dumb. Let's do this line. No, that doesn't work. Like
Yeah,
it's got a lot of personality to it, and seeing that Dina and Ellie's relationship was very it was very believable. It wasn't video gamey. It wasn't like cheesy. It was very like two people having a real relationship.
yeah.
Uh, and
Honestly, Dina and Lev, and Yara are probably my favorite characters in the game. Like new
Y-
characters.
Yara
Um,
was probably my most, other than Joel, my most like heartfelt, heartbreaking
yeah,
death. Was like,
but especially to like like hear like the little bit of journey that she has in the game, like of coming to terms with what Lev's going through, and then being mad about it, but then understanding it, and then just helping him.
not only
Uh,
nearly dying, losing your arm, and then having
yeah.
to come save your
Oh, that whole
brother,
scene was
and
tough.
they come in to accidentally where his mother had attacked him, and then he shoved her and she died. So now their mother's dead. Like, and then to go around the corner and then Yara to die, and so
Yeah,
Lev is just stuck there, whose mom and sister just died.
yeah. It's
Yeah, they're probably my favorite story in this.
yeah.
Uh, let's see, were there any? Did they talk about s- Henry or Sam at all? I don't
Not in
remember.
the not in this game.
I don't remember if there was any kind of reference. There was a small reference to Bill. Um, when you first ran into the traps,
Yeah,
she was like, "Oh yeah, we ran into this guy. Had a whole town rigged up with traps and things." And you had the porno uh
yeah, yeah.
smash Brandy's cooch.
That was funny.
That was pretty fun.
I like seeing the little medallion, like the Firefly medallion, and like connecting the stories all through.
Hmm.
Um, and how connected the world is,
Yeah.
um, through the like the radios and stuff like that. Um, yeah,
All right.
so,
I think that's good. We went from 2.5 to about 2 hours 45 minutes. So
yeah. And my audition stopped recording after about 2 hours and 20 minutes for some reason, but it should be fine.
yeah, hopefully Craig's done his job and we'll have
Yeah,
all the audio for you.
yeah.
But I guess that wraps it up for the Last of Us Part Two spoiler cast. We probably won't do an. I don't think we'll do this like for every game because obviously we haven't. We didn't even do it for Kingdom Hearts that we said we were
And we
going
said
to.
we were gonna do, but
Um, but this one we both finished on the same day. We've been wanting to talk about it. We needed to do a Ware Gaming Weekly, and
so we
it just
just
all lined up for us to do it. So
yeah.
um,
And like we'll have lots to talk about once we get going with Ghost of Tsushima and stuff like that. And I've been playing Streets of Rage 4 and stuff like that. So we got a lot to.
yeah, I do have a question to wrap this up. Are you going to play Ghosts in Japanese?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna play in
with
Japanese. I'm
subtitles.
not gonna play in black and white though.
I don't
Uh,
think I'll play in black and white either because I don't have the connection to those types of movies. I might turn it on for a bit or maybe do some
yeah,
photo
yeah.
mode stuff. Um, but
Well,
uh,
Japanese with English subtitles, obviously.
yeah.
Yeah,
So, all right. Well, that wraps it up for us.
yeah. I will post this soon, and then you'll be getting a new Ware Gaming news soon as well. If
Yeah.
you so just stay tuned to our YouTube channel and our podcast services. If you want to follow me, you can follow me at Speak Nicklish on Twitter and on Instagram.
You can follow me at Jaws1015 on Twitter, and you can follow us at Ware Gaming _. And I guess until next time, say goodbye, Nick.
Goodbye, Nick.